The apocalypse is coming. Are you scared? Are you prepared? The masses are running, frantically running from their fears, running with their tears, running from their lives, running from that dark shadowed creature that hides deep inside.
And we're live. Miguel's backstage. We're about to go on. Just wanted to mention very quickly, last week we talked a little bit about 9/11, and just wanted to just let people know where I'm coming from whenever I'm talking about that. Just briefly, I don't like to spoon feed people. Do your own research. This is a book called War and Globalization: The Truth Behind September 11th. This came out a long time ago, like right after the event. I'd say like 2002 or something like that. And actually, we actually had this whole thing going on there, which was back then about bringing the troops home. Um, and this book goes into globalization and who benefits from a war with the Arab states and destabilizing the nation and so forth. Um, So look it up. It's a good book. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon or any other bookstore. It's a great book. I read it many years ago. Right, it's Mitchell Chodowski, and then my favorite, Greg Plast. He always does a lot of great political books. The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Again, dealing with the Bush era, the Bush family, things about Cheney, and how Bush killed the FBI investigation of financing the terrorist organizations by Saudi Arabia, how the Bush family stole the election in Florida, and how Enron cheated, lied, and swindled its way into an energy monopoly, and more. So do your own research. Without further ado, there you go. Miguel Guerra, all the way from France. Bring him in. What's up? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, good evening for me, or close to evening.
Yeah.
Um,
Time is it over there? It's
yeah,
like-
about it's 5:30 here.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So
I gotta say, I really appreciate that you're able to make these sessions because we have a 6-hour, 7-hour time zone, something like that.
yeah, it's about 6 hours. Yeah, difference.
Yeah,
Lucky you're not in Cali.
I know.
Yeah, lucky
Well,
you're
during
not
the
in California.
pandemic, I spent I think 2 weeks in California,
Mm-hmm.
and I was actually working New York time. So it's like, so I was reporting to work at 7:30 in the morning, teaching kids remotely, but I had to wake up 3 hours earlier.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
That was pretty crazy, But it was only from I think it was like from 7:30 to 12 or something. That was like adjusted hours, but it was pretty wild, pretty funny stuff. So how you been? What's going on in the world of France? They had a lot of craziness going on over there.
Yeah, there is actually. There's some a young neo-Nazi man who was killed because he had gotten in a scuffle and with some anti-fascists, and of course it was painted as though the anti-fascists purposely killed him, but he died from the injuries from the scuffle.
Right.
And so now there's a moment of silence at the National Assembly, which people on the left are like, what the hell you're doing? And there's actually a lot of co-opting of neo-Nazi language and Vichy language by the center and the right and far right now going on here. Interesting, because all the people involved in that center to the far right have all been either in contact with or implicated by the Epstein files.
Right.
So it's interesting now that they're trying to clamp down. We have the equivalent here of APAC, which is CRIF, CRIF, I think. And the prime minister the president's appointed guy. He's kind of like the Speaker of the House in the National Assembly.
Right.
Was speaking to them and saying that in April they're going to put through a law in which any criticism of Israel will therefore be anti-Semitism, and that has people in an uproar here too. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like, well, in France, you have a huge Jewish population, so I could see that. People are going to be opposed to that.
well, what's interesting is that they're saying, that Macron came out and said this was right after the Epstein files dropped, and I didn't really understand what he's talking about.
Right.
He said, the Jewish community is the trunk of France, and all this stuff. France can't be France without Jewish people.
Right.
But my kids go to school here. Never once has anti-Semitism as a thing or any mention of Jewish people ever been brought up. It was always talked about as the big scourge of everyone is Muslims, Africans, and immigrants, which they're the two that make that up. So I was like thinking like it's an unnecessary weird thing, like
Well, I think it's the same thing in New York, and it's we have a huge population, so representation has always been an important thing, and I think the media just latches on to choose a group just to stir the pot. I don't see. I'm not saying that there isn't any anti-Semitism going on in New York. There definitely is, but I don't think anyone would notice it if the news didn't point it out. Because it's such a, I mean, same thing like blacks and Hispanics. We have
my question is,
we have a lot of crime in New York with blacks and Hispanics, but we don't know that unless the news points it out and says, "Hey, look, these people are doing this." But crime is crime. Everyone commits crime. It's not specific. It's not attuned to one nationality or another.
Well, my thing is this:
American. We're all American, and they're all French, right? So,
who does? Okay, my question is to any minority community: is this? Are you afraid that your children will not come home because some cop stopped them? And if your answer is no, then there you go. The system isn't geared against you.
No, I think
if your answer is yes,
right,
then the system's geared against you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I worry about my wife just going out shopping now because of the whole ICE raids, and they've been in this community here. They've been around.
Yeah.
It is scary. Is she legal? Yes. Is she a resident? Yeah, she's been a resident for 30 years, but it doesn't matter. It seems like they pick up anybody. Yep. But again, it's just like I feel like the media sometimes, just like for an example, when Trump was no longer in office and we had Biden, the news cycle died down because there was nothing exciting about Biden to talk about. So then they started to ramp up Trump stuff, and they never let it go because they wanted to get their ratings back. But in a sense, it's a guilt by association. The media brought Trump back into power because they wanted to make money.
Well, I think it's like a double fold thing. Like, who owns the media? It's his pals, right?
Yeah, it's all the rich.
Make the ratings from it, the very wealthy. So, and they also own a lot of the alternative media too. So when, say, someone more boring, like
the Australian guy, what's his name?
Rupert Murdoch.
Rupert Murdoch, he owns everything in New York, even the local paper.
Yeah. So when they're not in, then they start to create all these little weird conspiracy theories, right? And then once they get in, then the media then gets its feeding frenzy, and we fight each other.
Yeah, for sure.
And big problem, big problem. But I was like, no, you're kidding me. If there's anything, there's a lot of Islamophobia in Europe.
Right.
A lot of Islamophobia.
The Charlie Hebdo thing was not that long ago when,
No, it was not long ago. And that painted all Muslims as being a certain way, as though they want. It's funny because they try to make it seem like they want to eradicate Judeo-Christianity. Islam ties itself to the whole Jewish narration of their religion. They have all the same prophets. They just got one extra one. Well, to them, they would say two because they consider Jesus a prophet too. So it's this bizarre, like, oh, they're just this strange religion. It's like, no, you have more in common. All
Mhm.
three have more in common than
Yeah, they're interrelated,
they're
and yeah, even
interrelated.
though Hinduism in there too, because you have a lot of roots from Hinduism that just the concept of the Holy Trinity comes from the Hindu religion. It's just it's not the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's you
Well,
know,
and that comes
but,
thanks to the Romans because the Romans needed to make Jesus divine.
right,
But I
right,
mean, the story itself, it's like it's
right,
not really that alien, but they
right.
make it seem that way, and they work off of people's ignorance, not knowing that.
Yeah, people
Uh,
just need to read more. Um,
mhm.
and the media, the media, in a sense, does control the way we think, right? And I've been looking at things as algorithms, right? If we look at our brains like computers, we're societies. Every society is some sort of simulation that's been created, right? If we look at it through the lens of computers or whatever, right? But societies have grown for thousands of years. We have different simulations, religious algorithms, and growing up in a cult like I did as a Jehovah's Witness, there definitely is a way to talk. Who do you talk to? What do you say? How do you conduct yourself among other people? Who's chosen? Who's not chosen? Who's getting saved? Who's not getting saved? And then you're pushed and divided amongst people like, oh, those Christians are sinners and those people are non-believers and these people are idolaters, and everybody is the enemy. And if you have if and I'm not going to say every religion does that, but the ones that I have investigated on some level, every religion does do that and make them seem, that they're exclusionary, like you're elite, like you're special, like you got God's ear, he's on speed dial. you know.
Well,
Uh, it's
as
like
soon as you start to organize something that really, what I would say, what is really spirituality?
right,
It's you're trying to understanding of your existence and your voyage through this strange thing we call life.
right,
And once you start to turn that into a McDonald's form, in
right,
which you take it, you mash it up, and you go, okay, this is an experience everyone's going to have. If you don't have that experience, then there's something wrong with you.
right,
It's very faulty,
right.
right? So I think right there from that moment, you get it go. It kills your own personal journey, and I think that's why so many are disaffected. It's just sort of cut off
For
from
sure.
having their own journey and frustrated in
Hmm.
many ways.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is the original surveillance system,
Hmm.
you know, because it is a very unique. I'm not religious, and you know that,
Same.
but it is a very unique experience that we're all having right now.
Oh, yeah,
Being
for sure.
conscious, awake, you know, it's a marvelous thing, but sort of interesting that it's crushed by that organization. It takes away the specialness of it. It says there's going to be something else that's more special afterwards, as opposed to just realizing when you look at the universe and how much of it is dead, or at least we consider it dead, because it might not be dead. At least we consider live dead. That's a concept that we've come up with too.
Right.
Um, it takes it for granted,
Hmm.
so there's sort of like a looking at, if you're really religious, it's like looking at a gift that's been given to you, a gift horse in the mouth,
Hmm.
and that's, to me, is painful.
Right.
Now, I don't care what anyone believes. I think it's something that's personal. You keep it to yourself.
Right.
But there is almost a direct proportional formula, though.
Well, I
And
think that existed, that people did do that until social media came along and everyone started putting all their shit on Front Street.
well,
Private and otherwise, right?
I think they used to do that before with the televangelists
Oh
and the
yeah, for sure.
radio
Yeah,
shows
it's
and
true.
calling in,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I know,
so
like
we
that was
had
a designated time, a designated area.
different
And it was like
forms
a
of.
Sunday morning, people were sleeping, it's like but I used to watch what's his name? The guy from Texas with that Superdome stadium. Uh I call him the bartender of
Is it Olstein?
yeah, Olstein, Joel.
Olstein. Yeah.
That guy is such a bullshitter.
Oh
But
man.
I was always entertained by him, for years, like watching his show, watching his movements, his techniques. The guy really doesn't know the Bible. He's like a bartender that tells a story. He's just like, there's this guy named Moses, and there's this other guy, and then he goes up to the mountain. He finds this thing. He gets these commandments. It goes down. These guys are worshiping cattle. It's like worshiping a golden calf statue, and you know what I mean? It's like he tells it like almost like he's setting up a joke, but then he'll read like a half of a verse or something, it's like
It's like in Huckleberry Finn, there's the two scammers that Jim and Huck meet up with.
right.
And somehow they get tied into, I forget how, because it's been years since I read that book. They get tied into a revivalist movement.
Mhm.
And these guys are criminals.
Mhm.
But they start to swindle these people as to, yes, I've seen the Lord and all this other stuff.
Right.
You're talking something written, I think it was in the late 1800s.
Right.
So this is just part of American culture.
Right.
This is very much part of American culture.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, remember Tammy Faye and
Oh man, her crying with the makeup coming down.
right, melting is like.
And he's like, oh, I didn't touch them women. Well, yes, I did. I touched them too much, and
right. It's like
all that crazy stuff.
There's that Satanist movie with William Shatner, and his eyes turn black, and then he's like bleeding the black stuff out of his eyes. It's just like Tammy Faye reminded me of that movie with the.
Yeah, I always think it's something.
Yeah, that's like.
Like. There are things that are personal to you.
Right.
Your belief should be something that's personal and private.
Yeah, it's supposed to be something that's sacred, not something that you just like impose on other people.
Yeah.
They came in with the Bible and they came in with the sword, right? And then they just that was the Roman Empire, right? So it's like
the Roman, the Spanish, right. Portuguese, to an extent, the English too.
Yeah, worship us or die,
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of blasphemous because if you think about it,
right, it's just a tool for conquering.
There's this story, can't remember which of the Gospels is, but Jesus being taken out of the garden by the Roman soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Peter grabs a sword, cuts off the Roman soldier's ear.
Yeah.
Jesus heals him, tells him, put the sword back, don't do that.
Right.
Right there, it's like, how can you be for the sword or forcing anyone by the sword to believe in him when he literally says, put away the sword?
Right.
So
we have some comments here too. We got some. Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, and then people are freaking out over like the Paris opening games and that painting. And I'm thinking, what we deem as Christianity, this European version,
right,
has been blasphemous for about 1,500 years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Look at it from that perspective. But anyway, go ahead.
So we have a comment from retired Air Force member John Anderson. He says same thing as Don the Con.
Yeah.
The Don Con man is Olstein. The problem is the same thing 2,000 years ago. Roman people are just like the USA, a mixture of people from all over. Hitler's agendas were the Jews. Trump's agendas are the Hispanic people in the USA. 2 million of Hasidics in New York State are having babies. Oh, well, that's another thing. Yeah, the Hasidic thing. Up where I live, a lot of them are getting like. There was a documentary recently by this guy, I forget his name, young YouTuber, who actually did a whole thing on that. Hey, man, more power to them. But yeah, they are getting a lot of money. We talk about the welfare queen, but the reality is that it's not just blacks and Hispanics benefiting from welfare. The majority of people are white in America that are getting welfare.
Yeah.
And yes, and the Hasidic population here, there was a recent documentary that's on YouTube where he interviews people that live there, and they get like $2,200 per child, and they're having like 5-6 kids.
Wow. Yeah. From whom? From the government?
From the government. You get like a stipend for religious study. You get the welfare, so you're getting, and then you get like a very low interest home. This is a phenomenon that's not news. I mean, people who live around here have known this for a long
Mhm.
time. But again, it's like, where did we learn it from? The Puerto Ricans. We learned it from that. It's like, that's
Well,
kind of like a New York secret. Like, you're like in New York. You were,
mm,
like my daughter's mom's uncle worked in the Diamond District when I was a teenager, and
oh, the Diamond District,
they,
man.
they didn't marry their wives, but they had kids with them, and they were collecting the welfare for the kids. And where did the Puerto Rican population of the South Bronx get that from? They learned it from working with the Hasidics. It's
Interesting.
it's that's a New York secret.
I did not know that New York secret until now.
It's like,
That's
it's like, because a lot of these guys aren't wed, they're married, but they're not, for some reason their marriage is not recognized in New York State or something like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of integral things like that, but
it's a hustle.
it's a hustle. It's a New York hustle. I wouldn't say that
It's a very New York thing.
it's not unique to the Hasidics. I mean, more people are becoming, again, social media is making this aware. This is not something that's new. I mean, I remember there was a guy that was arrested who owned several buildings in New York, and he protested about his welfare. They cut his welfare or something like that. And he was on welfare. He was living in one of the projects down in the Lower East Side. And he was a Hasidic guy, and he had multiple buildings. He was a multiple building owner, but he had rent control. This is not new. And that's going back in the late 80s, right? So this is not, and a lot of people who know, if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. But this is how a lot of, because New York City is expensive to live in, and a lot of Hispanics and blacks.
Yeah.
We've lived in New York City for what, like over 100 years. So, and we mingle, we learn, we exchange knowledge. Like there's a lot of words I didn't know that were Yiddish. That that
Schmuck.
like schmuck, right? It's like
Yeah, I love that word.
Part of our what does it call it? Our vernacular. It's like the way we speak. Our language modified. And I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think it's a good thing that we
in the end,
those
those little scams are small comparison to
the
families.
Right. It's nothing compared to like like an Elon Musk getting $10 billion for rockets that don't fly anywhere.
Well, yeah, obviously.
But
you look at the Astor family.
It's like
the Astor family at the turn of the last century was pulling in $35 million in rent from slum properties they owned.
Right.
And if you didn't pay your rent, within a week you were out.
Right.
They went years without paying taxes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the money came in from the opium they were selling.
Mm.
Then there's that huge scandal, the Tammany Hall, which at one point I'm going to deep dive into that. Tammany Hall scandal, which all the elite New York families were involved in. This it was basically scamming everyone, right? So New York City is a scamming town. That's
New York City. Yeah, I mean, everyone has some sort of hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I think that changed in New York, and there's a lot of hypocrisy too. Like when I was already when I was in high school, I worked down in Chambers Street. There was a ton of what do you call that, strip clubs and things like that, like that, things no different than Times Square, right? But Dinkins leaves, you get Giuliani comes in, he cleans up Times Square, he gets rid of a lot of these mafia based,
which he did with a lot of the policies Dinkins brought in, by the way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And actually he takes credit for a lot of things that Dinkins was doing, right? So Dinkins kind of put these things in motion, and then he gets the credit for it. But what's ironic is as they were closing down Times Square and then shutting down a lot of these businesses, they didn't actually shut down a lot of the businesses beneath 8th Avenue. Those they didn't touch from 8th to 12th. And then, and if you worked in Wall Street, because I was working in Chambers Street from 88 to 91.
Yeah, that's not too far. Yeah.
they didn't touch those either. There were still strip clubs there, and there were still like the little like like peep show stuff, and you still had prostitution over
It was
there.
probably for the brokers,
Right.
for the
For the
brokers,
business guys, like you had the
pre-Epstein Island.
right, the FBI offices were there. You had Wall Street guys, and they didn't take those down. That entertainment was left for them to enjoy. Or if you go to 34th Street, 34th Street had their share. It wasn't Times Square, but you still had stuff on the west side near Madison Square Garden, and people still went there, right? And then you had
Interesting.
Pandora's Box, right? You had Pandora's Box. You had all these like S&M places that were on the west side of Manhattan that weren't touched, so because they serviced the upper crust. They got rid of all the blue collar places basically, and
They kept all the high-end ones.
high-end ones. They're still crappy and sleazy, but
Well, that's part of the theme, right? They want to feel like they're getting down with the working class people.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that show Boardwalk Empire, but I think that show that HBO did about the whole
No, I haven't. I think I watched like an episode or something, but
yeah, that's about prohibition and the whole thing in Jersey with Nikki Thompson, and they go into a lot of that, and you see a lot of the hypocrisy. Alcohol never stopped. If anything, they were making more money when it was illegal than when it was legal, because they can up the prices, right? And then who can afford it?
the rich.
The rich, right? And then the people that couldn't afford it, the good stuff, they made cheaper, more like deadlier shit that would like kill you, like crack. And
Yeah,
highly
the moonshine.
addictive, right? It's like like the moonshines, right? And
Moonshine, they made it in the bathtubs and stuff, and
and
all the hillbillies from the Appalachians making that shit that make you blind. Yeah.
right, like the corn whiskeys and all that stuff is like,
Well,
yeah,
I have to say that when you read about the time period, what caused it, the sort of like the whole prohibition was because America does have a problem with alcohol at that
oh, it
point,
is.
and still does. But
Well,
back
that's
then, there were a lot of women who were sick and tired of their husbands blowing their money gambling because they were drinking,
right,
beating them because they were drinking.
right,
So it's interesting. You had this whole revivalist movement,
right,
sort of it was a Christian movement led by women
yeah,
who were saying the men have to go cold turkey. But
right,
then, of course, you get the flip side of it.
right,
It's that whole the whole demonization of something,
right,
as opposed to getting to the root problem. Why are these people drinking so much?
right,
Why are they gambling? Well,
right,
maybe their lives are crap.
right.
Maybe
Oh yeah,
it's
exactly.
capitalism
Right,
in which you're trying to make a buck to gamble your way up to something, and just as much as the people who risk their lives selling this crap.
no different than the lottery today, right?
Exactly. So
I mean, the lottery in New York, I don't know about other states, but they said they advertise that this is going to go towards education. Why am I still paying education tax? The lottery is bigger than it's ever been. I don't think a cent goes to education, if any. Because it's like, why is my school tax so high if the lottery pays for education in New York, right? It's obviously BS. It's like I'm paying like $11,000 a year for school taxes, but yeah, the lottery that makes billions of dollars is going towards education.
the whole thing's a scam.
Right.
The whole thing's a scam because if there are many different levels of the scam.
Right.
So there's the money's going to go to the education.
Right.
Let's just say it did. Okay. Throwing money at things without actually thinking of a process as to a better result that you're going to get, and how to get there, having a plan, is never really instituted. It's just like the money's going for education, like what you said. Now, the reality is a portion of that money might be making it to education.
Very small.
small amount. But then you have all these people
Grain
along
of
the
sand.
way, like highway robbers, going, "Well, I need my cut, and I need my cut, and I need my cut."
Right,
So maybe you got out of a billion, you get 3 red cents to make it to someone.
right. And just like the same thing with the casinos, the Indians, they have these casinos on their land, but the New York governor Hochul will not allow them to, you know, um, make that money without giving the state a percentage. Even though that's on their land, right? It's their
Yeah,
native land.
technically, we should be paying them a
You're
percentage
paying them a
for having
percentage,
our stuff on their
right?
land.
Right. But it's just like, and there's a term for it, but they consider Native Indians incompetent, so they need like a fiscal sponsor.
Man, that's so patronizing.
And this is fucking 2026, and this is going,
That's so patronizing.
you know,
So what's our excuse then?
right,
Because it's not like our leadership acts like a bunch of adults.
right,
Anyone who's read the Epstein files, if
right,
you really step back, and you realize that these people are sitting around talking about how to get rid of the poor through pandemics,
yeah,
eating people.
right,
I won't even say it, but abusing kids, and I'll leave it there,
right,
and doing all sorts of barbaric things.
crazy
How are
stuff.
these people adults? How are they functioning adults? How do they even
Yeah,
participate in this thing called society?
right.
You
Exactly.
know,
John says we're all broke living in a for-profit country that is not going to help Americans with anything free. You guys should make a documentary about Trump's agendas and Putin's agendas in the USA. And he says, just looking at Wall Street and Epstein, which is what you just said. So, yes.
that's capitalism.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
from the beginning. One of the most clearest things that I ever heard, one of the clearest things and sharpest things I ever heard, it was when I first moved to New York.
Yeah.
I was living on St. John's Place. We just moved in. I remember having all this stuff. My wife worked for Bloomberg. She went off to work, and I was going off to get some lunch.
Right.
It was at a Jamaican little restaurant, and I'm waiting to buy some patties. And this guy in front of me, who I don't know where he's from, but he was from the Caribbean, given his accent, don't know which island.
Right.
And he says to the guy behind the counter, and this part I caught, he's talking some stuff, and then he says, the plantation became the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And see, none of this is new. Those aren't Trump's plans. Those aren't anybody's plans. This is the system we've been living in for 500 years.
Yeah.
That's what we've been living with. Even the stuff you find in the Epstein files, the eating of people,
Right.
the breeding farms. They had breeding farms. The whole thing with the little kids. Believe it or not, they were doing that shit to little kids too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back in the day.
And all that stuff is
Yeah.
not new.
Yep. They advertise it on packages like the feeding black babies to alligators and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
We just think that they just sort of, at some point, like magic,
Right.
just said, you know what? I don't want to do this shit anymore.
Right. Never stopped. It
Never
just,
stopped.
it just changed its form.
Mhm.
And it went abroad. A lot of that stuff went abroad,
Well, a lot of that stuff was also happening abroad because they had the colonies of a lot of other places too.
Right, exactly.
So
So
it's
yeah.
happening. It's all this colonization stuff. Now, some people want to throw they're Satanists, and I call them Satanists, but not in the way that most people think. I'm not calling them the devil.
Right.
I'm calling them Satanists in the sense, the movie sense.
Right.
They're getting dressed up with robes,
Right.
get some sort of weird kink out of being naked and all this other crap that they do. But really, they're nihilists. They don't believe in anything. You
Right.
can see from the emails, they're empty inside.
Yes.
You can tell me, well, they're Jewish or they're Christian. No, they're not. They're nothing. They don't believe in
I don't
anything.
believe in anything.
Anything. And that's why they have to do the extreme things that they have to do to feel
Right.
something.
Right.
The proof is right there in the emails. Hunting black people.
Right. Yeah, that's and then it's in our entertainment. It's in the movies, and then they're kind of like laughing about it.
Are they laughing, or are there some people who are trying to tell us, yo, this is what they're doing?
Right. Right.
Like, this is what they're doing. I know you think this is entertainment, and maybe you'll think it's entertainment, but yo, this is what they're doing.
Right.
So I think they're telling it, and they tell on themselves too.
Yeah.
They tell on themselves too. Um, I don't know where we go from this. I really don't know. Um, they're, they're trying to say aliens, right? They're trying to talk
Yeah,
about aliens.
it's like, give me a break.
I'm like, and you might have seen my post.
Right. Yes.
How do you outdo satanic
Right.
rape, child raping, cannibalistic,
Mm-hmm.
pandemic planning, black people hunting, rich people that run the world? Aliens is like meh,
Whatever.
eh. Oh, and they're cloning people.
Right,
They're
right.
you got the dude that was a quadriplegic, Stephen Hawking, going to do stuff. I'm like, the dude's quadriplegic. How does this work?
Right.
Right? And then you're reading these emails, and I don't mean to make light of it,
Right.
but they're so absurd
No, it's insane.
that you feel like you're finally seeing after 30 years, or well, for us, it's 52 years, right?
Right.
It's like every conspiracy, every missing mystery is tied up to this guy, like some sort of Marvel Comics movie in which you finally get to reveal that the villain is Thanos
Right.
and
Right.
Epstein is Thanos. Everything ties right back to him. Whether it's 9/11, he's got it. Hey, John Benet Ramsey? He's got it. That little girl that went missing? He's got it.
Right.
Iran Contra? Man, that guy was in that shit.
Right.
I'm just asking, how did this guy manage to do all this other stuff? Right? So the shock value is so over the top that to bring us this thing with aliens, unless the aliens are in it, then
Yeah.
maybe you got something. So I'm looking at it.
Alien, vampire.
Well, no, we got the vampires. We got the vampires, Ray. We got the vampires
Yeah.
because that Peter Thiel dude was apparently, and it's apparently bought something to do with plasma to rejuvenate people from young people's blood or whatever the crazy shit they have.
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
And it all comes down to this. We need to take their money away from them. Not because they're rich, because it's harmful to them and to us. They're mentally ill. We got to put them to work. Maybe after they start sobering up a little bit, going, holy shit, I don't have any time to plan, how to take over the world with Bannon anymore. I got to worry about flipping these burgers.
Right.
Then maybe they might sober up a little bit.
Right.
And in many cases, they need to be put in jail.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, where do we go from this?
I know it's like the kitchen sink has been thrown at us, but that's kind of the Steve Bannon playbook, right? Throw everything to just keep hitting you over and over again. It's like ground and pound MMA style, to the point where you can't react, and the media is overwhelmed, and they can't react, and
Well, I know where we go from this now, but if I say what I'm going to say, I'll end up in federal prison.
right. So yeah, I
And
get
I'm
it.
sure there's a lot of people out there who are probably feeling the same way.
Everyone's feeling it. It's there. It's
It-
in the air. It's in the air.
yeah. But my thing is, you don't do things mad,
No.
right?
No.
But I bring up the question, where do we go from now? It's just like, you can't sell me a movie with all this crazy shit. And then turn around and sell me Close Encounters from the Third Kind. Because I'm going to go, tell you what, Spielberg, that shit's boring.
Right.
You already dazzled me with this. You're not going to distract me with this other stuff. Not even World War III is that crazy.
It's Alien versus Terminator versus Predator. That's basically what it is.
Take the entire Jason, Freddy, Alien, throw them all into a blender.
Right.
And we got this. They were even talking about cloning, that they had a clone of a Neanderthal.
Right.
I mean, I'm just waiting for them.
Totally insane.
It's insane.
It's insanity.
What's even crazier is they were doing all this over email.
Yeah, it's just like, and don't they understand that everything's tracked and monitored? You think the people doing all this would be smart enough to?
Well, they never thought they were going to get caught. 1, 2,
have a VPN or something. I don't know. It's like,
as we can see from the FBI and how the FBI has been acting, and the Department of Justice,
right.
all of them are in it. They're protecting them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they didn't think it was going to get out to the public because they knew that they were covered. But you and me, we're both comic book creators, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you were sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to write these villains, the Legion of Groom,
Legion of Groom.
and you're sitting there and thinking, yeah, okay, how do my villains communicate? And
Right.
if your brain went, well, what if they say all this through email? You'd be like, come on now.
Right.
Everyone's
Like,
going to think that's
no one's
bullshit.
gonna believe that. Like, that's totally unbelievable.
It's completely unbelievable. But they did it because they're idiots. You know,
Not smart. They're not smart at all.
they're not smart. They're vicious, but
Yeah.
they're not smart.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God they're not smart because if they were
Yeah.
smart, we'd be screwed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he could do all the flood the zone, but, you know,
Exactly.
Steve Bannon, he was in it and he was trying to rehabilitate a pedo.
Yep. Yep. Right.
Not a good look.
Not a good look. Not at
Not a
all.
good look. I don't care what it. So my attitude's this: I'm not going to poke fun at MAGA people. Actually, yes, I am. I lied.
We told you so. It's like,
Whatever, you know. But don't come to me that you care about unborn children.
right.
You want them born for your overlords to eat.
Right.
One, two. No, you don't care about Pizzagate. You only cared because you thought it was just the Democrats.
Right.
You know, and all the other stuff, all that stuff is just a demented Mickey Mouse club. You know, even got a hat. Maybe they got neat little red ears too with those "Make America Great" hats. So, you know.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
So yeah, kind of hard to absorb.
Yeah, it's totally fucking.
Yeah,
It's insane. It's crazy town. Crazy town for real.
but see, the thing is that so there's a side of looking at this story, and they're trying to distract us from that story. But it's
Yes.
so crazy, you can't stop looking at it.
Right. And
Even the Rothschilds got
but,
in the mix of this.
but the thing is this that you think that the government releases these files. You think they're going to prosecute or interrogate or interview anybody or hold a case. The whole world is being every government around the world that has a world leader or someone of influence in those files, they're arresting them, questioning them. There's ongoing. This is an international thing, not just America, Epstein Island, and no one in the United States is doing anything. They give it to us thinking, they're lazy. They're not going to look at it. But now the internet's exploded with all these people literally going into it, and in great detail. And you have people weighing in on it, lawyers, activists, curiosity seekers, law enforcement, all sorts of people from all walks of life. The people are like, we want to lock these people up, but the government's not doing anything.
Which is only proving that the government is part of that group.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I don't think they understand that. They're
Yeah.
going, oh, we're not going to. Well, how do you? And the things that I've read, like if anyone wants to look up the Leon Black
Right.
from Apollo Inc., what he did, because I'm not going to describe it, was disgusting. Or this Skippy video that's going around, which was also equally just as disgusting and disturbing.
I haven't seen that. So
I just saw this one dude that was like the big dude talk like this, breaking down, crying after that Skippy video and saying, we got to do something. And obviously he wasn't a Democrat from when I saw him. It's just some people you just know, no, he's conservative, right? And we are a country of 340 million people. I don't like, if I was them, I would be kind of gambling on that much. Now they're deleting files as we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently they deleted over 1 million files.
Right.
And, they've redacted some stuff. Thankfully, some other people have archived it. So it's publicly available.
Right.
And we've only gotten 2%. Now, some say, well, there's 6 million files. Correct. But there's 14.6 terabytes, we've only gotten 300 gigabytes. My geeky people who are very much comfortable with tech, you know what that means. But 14 gigabytes, terabytes, I think it's like 1,000 gigabytes per 1 terabyte. We only got 300 gigabytes. So not even a full terabyte of this crap. Now, it
Right.
doesn't mean every single file on that is a PDF, most likely video. Video does take up more, but they're not showing us some stuff because I think they know it would trigger that would be just too much. You know, just too much. And they can go ahead flood the zone, but this is going to live on forever, you know. And in terms of other countries doing stuff, yes. Denmark has.
Mhm.
England's having that fallout. They might lose the royal family. Uh, Spain's having its own problems, though, because the former president of Spain, Aznar, he was involved in it. He had packages he received from um, Epstein, and he's saying he'd sue any media company that even mentions his name in Epstein. So
Mhm.
they're fighting right now in Spain. Here in France, the left is pushing for it. They put together a special investigative team, but Macron has been fluffing it off as, that's just an American affair. Meanwhile, the guy lived here in France for 6 months out of the year.
Right.
And his counterpart, I think his name was Louis Brunel or whatever his name was, who's in charge of a lot of the model agencies,
Mhm.
he also mysteriously was killed in jail.
Mm.
And Macron's name does come up, and there's some possible communication between him, Macron, and um, Epstein. So, you know, yes, it's happening internationally, but each country is kind of handling it differently
Yeah.
in that regard. And I think they're just going to kick out a few people to the wolves to hide the real people who are running it.
Right.
You know, and then you have Les Wexner being threatened by his lawyer.
Mm.
Could you imagine writing that in a movie where
Right.
the dude's
And
getting
he's
just
saying, yeah, he's like threatening him. That thing went viral. It's just like,
he was on a hot mic. That lawyer's also mentioned in the Epstein files. So we have a whole cabal. I
right.
think the problem that everyone's shocked,
Secret society confirmed.
the not so secret society,
That's a secret society. I mean, what did you
not
think
so
when they arrested the former Prince Andrew?
oh, that was precious. That was precious. The look on his face on the way back was precious.
Yeah. It's
Then again, what's he gonna get? I mean, he's really only getting nailed not for the child abuse part, and potentially killing kids and all the other stuff. He's getting nailed for potentially giving up state secrets.
right.
So this should let you know where their priorities are for people, the people that rule us. Oh no, it's nothing to do with the kids. They're
Right.
just trash. It's that you gave away our secrets to those a-holes. That's what he's getting nailed for, which
Yeah.
is sad, you know. Meanwhile, it was his brother's bodyguards. And by the way, his brother was best friends, King Charles, was best friends with a man by the name of Jimmy Savile.
Right.
Jimmy Savile was one of the most notorious pedophiles in English history.
Right.
And he only got found out literally after he died. But he had been protected by Thatcher, protected by Elizabeth, and all that. And he was a disgusting man. He was a necrophiliac and all that shit.
Right.
Uh,
Oh.
yeah, he was gross. Yeah. So we have an elite that see themselves as gods. They see us as cattle. And it's right there. They tell us.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're going to do about it. I mean, I know what we should do, but I don't know if we'll do it. That's the part that's sort of a little depressing.
Very, very, very. Yeah. But,
Hmm. But here's the best part, though. At least from now on, when somebody says, "Oh, I love that Bill Gates. He does such good charity work,"
right.
at least we can mock them.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
guy that was supposed to be in charge of our health got STDs, and I'm going to assume that they were of age, from Russian prostitutes, and then tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to send him antibiotics.
Right.
Not a doctor, some dude that barely could even like spell, get antibiotics to fool his wife and make sure she didn't get the STDs.
Right. Right.
And this is the guy that was a big genius.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I was trying to cue something up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really. You think about all the way the media portrays these people, that they're the best and the brightest, and
The
they're
virtuous.
right there. Oh, that we need them. We can't charge them their fair share of taxes because they'll just leave the country. Let them leave. You know what? We can balance our budget in this country and end our debt if we just stop funding these billionaires, the billionaire class, these Hollywood movies. I don't want. We don't need Hollywood movies anymore. We don't need celebrities anymore. This is the 21st century. Fuck all those people. Go get a fucking job like everybody else. It's like,
Well,
and
here's the
pay your
thing.
damn taxes. Hit them all with the way I'm getting attacked with taxes year after the last 10 years. They're coming at me saying you owe back taxes, X, Y, Z, all this shit. Even if I claim bankruptcy, I would still have to pay those things back. It's like they need to do that with this elite class. You want to leave the country, fine, but you don't take any of your wealth with you, just like China does. They're like, you want to go ahead and leave. You can't take your money out of our banks.
Well, what's interesting that you say that is that originally income tax was intended for the wealthy. It was not intended for us. But the wealthy being the way that they are, they pushed it on us and they managed to escape it, for one. Two, here's where they really doubly screw us. So on the one hand, they take the money from our government for whatever projects they want. On the other hand, they also are the ones that we owe all the debt to. So about $21 trillion or so, a good chunk of it is owed to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if we said, you know what, we're not paying that portion of the debt to you guys, they're screwed, right? So it's like, poof, your wealth goes poof. Because a lot of these people aren't wealthy. They just own bonds. They own property. Like when the idiots that were saying, oh, we're going to leave New York if Mambandi gets in, it's like, your wealth is literally that land that sits in New York City. You can't pick it up and take it and leave, take it with you. So they win two ways. They get the money for free, with next to no interest rates put on it from, say, the Federal Reserve, or they get the money also for free from the projects they're supposed to be giving us. Then they pad everything. Like the Hollywood films, a lot of these films could be made a lot cheaper, but a lot of this money doesn't even go to the production team. It goes to God knows what.
Right.
Sure, the celebrities, they're not the masters. They're just the pretty little flowers in the garden that the gardener, the master, gets all of us to pay attention to. That's why I don't really care about Hollywood per se. I mean, I enjoy some of them very talented people. I'll give them that much.
Right.
But the people that we should be really focused on, the Teals, the Wexners, the real guys that sign the paychecks for the celebrities. Celebrities are just going along because they just want their career and they want to, because if anything, Michael Jackson's a perfect example of how a celebrity has no power. When the media, the system decided to turn against him because he wouldn't go along with their crap,
Right.
they took a man and they just destroyed him.
Yep.
And every once in a while, when they want something, they want us to distract us, they'll bring something up that he did. The man's been dead for 10 years.
Yep.
They'll still bring him up.
They still bring him up.
Yeah, so they're distractions. I don't care. Some of them are entertaining, some of them are not entertaining, but you leave it at entertainment.
Yeah. John Anderson says, remember, religion is the problem. They are the all for profit systems. Yeah.
Well, it's the original corporation, but it
Right.
goes back further. That's where we
Exactly.
get money from.
Yeah.
We get money from the temples.
Hmm.
Where most of the gold was held was often in the temples. People use credit. And so, for example, the word credit comes from the Latin word credo, belief,
Right.
right?
Belief. Yeah.
Belief. Even if it's gold, we all believe that gold has worth, but
Right.
we all believe that it has worth.
Right.
Belief. Does it really have worth?
To rock.
No. It does for computers. You can use it for computers. It has its uses and stuff. In that sense, yes, it's good. But that alone, I mean, people have used all sorts of stuff as currency. But
Right.
even the word money comes from the goddess Juno Moneta,
Mhm.
which is the goddess literally of money. That's where we get it from. So it's
Right.
our financial system is very much tied into the religious system. It's intertwined.
Yeah. Paganism, all that stuff. Yeah.
Even going back to the reason Jesus was flipping the tables. A lot of people don't know that the reason he flipped the tables was because ultimately he was trying to get them to stop not, how can I put it, getting rid of Jubilee. I think we lost Ray. I think he accidentally unplugged himself, so I'll just continue on. So the thing that we call debts and goes all the way back to the idea of sin. So very much tied into that whole system. You kicked yourself out. I realize
You
that.
know what I did? There was some dust on the edge of my thing here, and I was wiping it with two fingers, and that swiped me out of the window.
Well, I just kept talking because I figured you got kicked out. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, we could have different systems, and what they want us to believe is that there isn't alternative systems.
Right, exactly.
You know, if someone does really well and they're very talented and they
Mhm.
sell a lot, I don't care. That was your talent.
Right.
But if someone all of a sudden we have a system that there are gatekeepers who choose who's going to be famous and who's not going to be.
Mm.
That's a problem. And the algorithms are the artificial gatekeepers
Yes.
in our system.
Yes.
What gets said, what gets told.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we're just doing an artificial version of the stuff that we grew up with,
Yep. Yep.
you know. Um, so anyway, that's the end of my rant.
I mean, I love talking to you because it's like you always it's like a teaching moment, as Obama would say. It's like there's always something that I was like, oh, I didn't know that. It's like yeah,
Thank you.
it's it really is.
Thank you.
You know,
That comes. That's. You're a teacher, so that's a wonderful compliment.
yeah. I mean, it's just like it's fascinating to like I mean, you look at the whole Bitcoin thing. Even Epstein has his hand in that too,
Oh man,
and it tanked like you know tens of thousands of dollars when that came out. I'm sure it's going to recover because it's the stock market. But how many investors like, oh shit, and then pulled their money out? That's what that was.
see, its problem is it relies on other currencies.
Yes.
It became then a speculative market,
Right.
but really it should have been as a replacement for PayPal.
Right.
It should have been an easy way for, man, I want to buy this crap
Right.
and I'm going to use it. I mean, they are using it to buy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
not stuff,
But
people.
it's money laundering,
Money laundering, human trafficking, and drugs.
again, yeah, the black dark web.
So when I started to see those reports, I
Mhm.
thought this must have been made by the CIA. Because in this way, this kind of can get traced, but being the way that they are, spooks are.
And you're always having money disappear from the Pentagon, like billions of dollars. And if the Pentagon Papers talked about that, and then all of a sudden They said they're going to investigate it. Then what do you have? You have a pandemic and a lockdown. Then what happened to that investigation? It's
Well,
like,
you remember the week of 9/11,
right.
the week and leading up to 9/11,
There's also money missing.
there
Yeah.
was a whole they were going to cut the CIA budget, one,
Mhm.
and two, they were supposed to talk about, I think it was like 20 trillion or 21 trillion dollars that went missing.
Mhm.
Funny that number, because that just happens to be the number that we're in debt for. I mean, we're in debt for 34 trillion, but 21 trillion of it
Right. Went
just went
missing.
missing. And of
Well,
course,
this is when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. Whenever we were arresting people, they did what they called dead drops of like
mhm,
disk and flash
with
drives,
pallets.
and they were basically dropping these in people's homes because people would go into the home after they were arrested, and then they had these radicalizing messages on these things. So our soldiers were basically creating and radicalizing people in response to illegally arresting these people. So we created terrorist groups, and it's basically entrapment.
Mhm.
We created a hub, and in order to fight the terrorists, we created terrorist groups. And you see the same thing happening with Hamas. You see the same thing happening with what's happened in Syria. You see it with the gangs in Gaza, with the food being controlled, and we know who's behind
Well, the
it.
whole thing is creating a
the Yeah, so the United States has been, it's very clear that they and their allies have been behind this whole thing from
it's
the
about
beginning.
burning the candle at both ends. This way you control the chaos.
Right, it's controlled chaos.
But here's the thing, a lot of times those people that you supposedly pay, and this is one of the problems with Western thinking, particularly American thinking. We think, oh, I'll give you this money for this task.
Yep,
Now I permanently own you.
yep,
In those cultures, thank you for giving me money, you sucker. Now I'm going to do whatever I want after I complete this task. It
right.
doesn't mean, because we're transactional, and transactional means
Yes.
I just paid you for this. So you got to keep that money flowing in. And I think this is where we're burning our own asses, or we're not we, but they're burning their own asses, because eventually you start creating Frankensteins.
Right, and
And
that's
then you can't control these Frankensteins. Um,
right,
the British did it with the pirates. Pirates weren't always called pirates. They were
right,
called privateers.
right.
So they go steal from the Spanish because the Spanish had stolen from the indigenous. They
Mhm.
steal their gold, fill up the British coffers. Once they had enough that they had, then they said, okay, these guys are pirates, we need to get rid of them.
Right,
Francis Drake, who's the big guy for the Majesty's Secret Service and all that James Bond shit, he
mhm.
was a pirate. He was a slave trading pirate,
Right,
you know. Um, and it's that the idea of the means justify the ends.
mhm.
Yeah, but once you get into that labyrinth, you don't get out.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. And it's been running like this for a long time, and now it's slowly catching up. And I think that the Epstein thing, sure, they're going to flood the zone, they're going to tell us all this stuff, but I think it was a bad mistake on their part,
Right,
to even let any of that out. Because here's the thing, not only was he funding Bitcoin, he literally funded 4chan and all the dark web stuff.
right.
And plus, he was also funding a lot of the transgender stuff.
Yeah,
Because there's emails of him talking some weird, bizarro, messed up fantasies he had about transgender people, too. But he was funding all this. So he's funding it on both ends. And who's reaping is us for now, right? We're getting
right.
that. Oh, the bathrooms and the other people. Well, it's nothing to do with that. And all this stuff. He was talking to a guy who did transition stuff on kids that were 3 years old.
Right.
A kid that hasn't really even understood okay, this is who I am. 3. And not to mention the dentist he would bring in to remove children's teeth and all sorts of really twisted crap.
Right.
So Anyone that says to me that our elite are looking out for our best interest, I can literally laugh in their face. Be like, yeah, nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're supposed to get Danny Fingeroth to talk about his new book, Jack Ruby, The Many Faces of Oswald's Assassin. He should be coming on any minute. So, what's your favorite conspiracy before he comes in? What's the favorite conspiracy that you like to talk about? Because there's so many for me. I mean, it's like Kennedy is up there, though. Definitely.
I don't know if I have a conspiracy,
Yeah.
but there is a theme throughout most of my work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always that the rich are crazy.
Yes. Yes.
The rich are crazy. They're just, they're damn crazy and damn dangerous. That's always been my thing.
Yeah.
And we could talk about lizard people. My
Right.
God, at this point, if it was lizard people, it'd seem normal. Then I'd be like, okay, this now all makes sense. They're not even humans, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Did you see that clip about the girl Biden's daughter or something like that, or niece, that she's like saying that Joe Biden was a twin and that he died? Since the Epstein files came out and said that Joe Biden died in 2019 and was replaced with a double.
Oh yeah, I've heard something like that.
Saying that Joe Biden's had a twin brother apparently, and then he actually replaced Joe Biden as president.
Yeah.
It's like, and then now she's confirming that on TikTok, and like it's like, wow. But he was also like, the hair sniffer and
Ice cream.
ice cream, and
Ice cream.
that was the
code words.
code word. And then his daughter wrote a book while he was president, which also surprised me that the media kind of shied away from that. She wrote a detailing that she was afraid of her father because when she turned 13, he would always force himself into the shower with her. I mean, his own daughter, like, it's just,
what's wrong with them?
This is like the sickness, I mean, Dr. Jill Biden, right? That was his son's babysitter. That's his second wife. So he's known her since she was 16 years old. So this is not just a Republican thing. It's also a Democrat thing. It's also an elite thing, like
just an elite thing.
Yeah, like the set of Ellen DeGeneres looks very similar to Epstein Island. And that little
so does the logo for Nickelodeon.
And look at the Nickelodeon and SpongeBob. The dress was Epstein Island's Little St. James Island on the episode where they showed his driver's license.
Oh, he had multiple passports, and his apartment in New York, the security was set up by Israel, the Mossad. Yeah. And anyone that would go visit him, they would have to do a security clearance by the Mossad.
Yeah.
So there's Alan Dershowitz let the cat out of the bag, though. They asked them. They said, "Sorry, my nose, freaking beard. I'm gonna have to shave this off soon because it's winter's almost over."
And then it's coming back. It's like it's growing back in. Like
I got my movie beard. Alan Dershowitz let the cat out of the bag because he said he was on Piers Morgan. And he was saying, "Well, did you know that he was connected to Mossad?" And he says, "If he told me he was connected to Mossad, he would have gotten a get out of jail free pass."
I saw that.
But I'm like, he just said something about not just Mossad, the intelligence agencies.
Yes.
That they're running human trafficking.
Yeah.
And if they get caught, you get out of jail free pass. That's what's more or less inferring.
Right. So so he's denying at one hand that he is, and then at the same time he's admitting this is what happens if you were.
Exactly. So that means there's something going on that they don't want to tell us. I personally think that the people in charge of the chicken's coop are the foxes. Right. And they keep telling us, no, we're the farmer. I'm like, I see those pointy ears.
Right.
You're not the farmer. So yeah, mine's always comes down to the rich people are crazy, but that's not much of a conspiracy theory. That's just
that's just what it is. I mean, they don't live in our world. I mean, if we were raised with never having any need or want, everything is accessible at your fingertips. At some point, you're gonna like lose touch with the rest of the world, and
Yeah, and it's not even a matter necessarily of need. It's
you
that
know,
any excess is
excess.
accessible.
Yeah.
Because I think that we could grow up without any need. Like, you
Mhm.
have food in the fridge, you can go out and do stuff, but you're still a part of the community.
Well, not having to reach the working age, and not having to go to work, I think that does something to you because why don't you have a job?
Right.
If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and you never
I mean,
had
there's a lot of poor people who don't do that.
right, that does something to them as well, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's part of the problems with the economy.
right, and that's part
But
again,
but
like
they're not putting together hunting parties.
right, right. No,
It's like,
but quite often they start shit on the train, right?
yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to my dad's mom's favorite saying, an idle mind is a devil's playground, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or idle hands is the devil's workshop. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I totally understand that, but
Mm.
it isn't a matter of just having stuff, like things are okay.
Oh, I think Danny's here. Let's add him to the
All right.
stage. Hey, Danny, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can't.
Hey, Danny.
But we have your audio. Yes.
Okay. But what about my
Video.
camera? Seems to be on, but
Your camera's not on, man.
Yeah, your camera's not on. Let me see if I
my,
let
my
me see.
green, let's see. What do I have to do here?
Let me edit. Let's see, I got your mic set. Let's see.
Because the green light indicating my camera's working is on.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Your mic is sharp, clear.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm
Because
just
everyone can see and hear me.
yes.
I can hear you, but I
Yeah, we
can't
can
see
hear you. Yeah, we can hear you for sure. Seeing
Okay.
now. Let me see.
Oh, wait. Hold I
There you go.
There you are. There you
How's it
go.
going?
Okay. Oh,
I love this. You have like this whole CNN background with the bookshelf. I love it.
that's
Nice.
it. Oh, yeah. You can see my Bob Dylan books, my Marvel books.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. Okay. Yeah. There was a little icon that I had to hit to
It's like
open up the camera. So what the hell is this show, Ray? What am I in the middle of?
this is
Oh, hi,
Bronx
Miguel.
Heroes.
I don't know if you met me well, but nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Danny.
This is Bronx Heroes War and Comics is basically a show where we talk about what happened in the week in the news, and we also talk about comic books that are nonfiction that deal with war. You know, like last week we are talking about Persepolis. You know,
Oh,
we
okay.
talked about other types of books, and we also refer to other books that are non-comic books to read. Like we had David Plast and other books that we've talked about. Crossfire in the past, which is Jim Mars, things like that.
And have you talked about Eisner stuff, like To the Heart of the Storm?
Yeah, yeah, we did talk about Eisner. That I think it was our first episode or second episode.
The one that got blown up.
Yes, the one that got yes, yes.
Yeah, because Will Eisner Week is coming up starting March 1st.
That's correct. That's correct. And I have my poster here.
Oh man!
Mentioning you got the Dreamer here.
Oh, cool! That's this year's Will Eisner Week poster. That's it. Read a graphic novel and
Yeah,
go to
exactly.
an event, have an event, start a podcast, whatever you.
Absolutely. So tell us. We gave a little intro to your book. Jack Ruby, The Many Faces of Oswald's Assassination. We mentioned about Jack Ruby's history. He was changed with one bold, violent action, right?
Right.
And why don't you go into it and give us a little bit more about this? Because
Okay. I'm always better with more specific questions, but I was 10 years old when the JFK assassination happened, and I was shaken by it. But when you're 10 years old, you kind of think maybe it's just how the world is. Maybe just people. It's on the one hand it was startling, and on the other hand is I don't know. It's a big weird world of grown-ups out there. Maybe this is what grown-ups. Lincoln got shot, and it's just sort of
yeah.
man,
That's true.
this this. So I mean, it's so weird because of course now I'm just going to free associate, so you guys are going to have to put up with that.
That's fine.
That's fine.
There's the famous combination that then 3 months later, the Beatles showed up in America and started some, to make people feel better or something about Kennedy. I tend to associate it more with like what was going on in comic books at the time. And I wrote a biography of Stan Lee, and once in a while I'll do, just to sort of promote both my books, or both books, I'll do a Stan Lee and Jack Ruby presentation, and my joke, not a joke, is what do they have in common? Is that they both had big ears in 1963. But I'll tell you, I'm just going to jump around here. I was researching at the Stan's archives in Wyoming, and he called me.
Oh, nice.
It was weird because I didn't even know if he knew I was there. And I asked why Stan's archives in Wyoming, which is the whole of the story. But I'm mixing up story. They called me there, but at one point when I was researching the Ruby thing, started as a graphic novel project.
Right.
That's sort of my comfort zone. I'd written other books, and so they interviewed me. If you go to the Sixth Floor Museum, which is the old book depository, it's this museum, devoted to the Kennedy assassination, into that whole era. I thought, well, Stan Lee, who never met an interview he didn't want to do, would be a perfect person to be interviewed by this. I mean, because what it had was people who somehow shaped the culture or lived through the period or somehow were relevant. And I thought, well, this would be right up Stan's alley. He loves being interviewed. He loves talking. And yet he declined when I reached out to him. They said they'd love to interview you for their video, their video archive. He didn't want to do it. I'm not sure why. It seemed, maybe he thought it was too political or too loaded. But he has a story that he always would tell. I have no idea if I'm answering your question, but he had a story he would always tell. Marvel put out a lot of stuff. Marvel was owned by a guy named Martin Goodman, who was the original publisher, and he was Stan's cousin. And they put out all sorts of stuff. True Detective magazines and kind of knockoff of Playboy type magazines and celebrity magazines, and pulp. In the pulp era, they started out as a pulp publisher, Pulp Fiction. Then they wanted to get in on this this comic thing once Superman was popular. So one thing they used to do, I think they got a lot of publicity stills from movies and TV shows. So the office was filled with these free images of movie stars and still shots from popular movies. So Stan loved to write funny captions and word balloons for those and publish them. They're called fumetti,
Yes.
And they were cheap. They're obviously cheap to do because they weren't paying anything for the images. Stan could make a few bucks writing them, and the company, they were so cheap to produce. It's black and white, and so they had one when Kennedy was elected. Around that period, they're putting out something called "You Don't Say." And because Kennedy was good looking and popular and just been elected, he was on a few covers. The most famous, I don't know, the most famous, but one of the ones I remember is it was Kennedy with the presidential seal on the podium in front of him that says President of the United States. And a big sign behind him that says President of the United States. And his funny word balloon that Stan put in was, "Allow me to introduce myself," So, so there was an issue. I think that was the issue. That was, but there've been other covers. There've been other issues with Kennedy on the cover because he was perceived to sell magazines. So Stan would claim that issue was about to go to press, and just when the assassination happened, and they called it back because they thought it would have been in bad taste.
Right.
Which you know, but I think that story was pretty much bullshit. I mean, I think if you look online, it's pretty easy to find copies of that. Now the way magazine, in fairness to Stan, magazine distribution was a slow motion process. You'd put magazines on a truck, like in Illinois, on the printer, and then it would take up to 2 weeks for the trucks to reach all the different parts of the country. Well, maybe they did call back some trucks, and it wasn't as widely distributed as it could have been.
Right.
But that was, and I thought, but it's a good enough story, and it's Stan Lee, and nobody expects every one of his stories to be 100% true. So I was surprised, and maybe he thought he didn't want that on the public record, it's just funny because he. While his comics and the bullpen bulletins he wrote and the Stan soapboxes didn't get into partisan politics, but he seemed to be willing to talk about the issues of the day in general terms.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so for me, what it really, when you're 10 years old and you're a comics fan, that in some ways that is how you measure what was going on in my life, what was going on in the world. So that was 63, which was a great year. It was like the beginning of the height of the peak of the Marvel, the Fantastic Four, and
that's true.
So I was 10 years old. This weird thing happened with A, Kennedy gets assassinated, then B, 2 days later, we're either watching it live or in replay, of Oswald being killed by Ruby, and you just sort of file it in your, in your consciousness. It was real, since I am, you'll pardon the expression, baby boomer. It's really one of the formative memories, collective memories that everybody has in common. And it was too big for me. I couldn't really, because you'd hear 100, I mean, this is part of the challenge of writing the book. You hear 100 different conspiracy theories, and a lot of them make sense. A lot of them are perfectly logical. Doesn't mean they happened just because they're logical, or plausible.
Right.
Right.
So then I go through decades. I'm in the comic book business and do all the, all the stuff with Spider-Man and I wanted to write a nonfiction graphic novel. It seemed like, those were popular and it seemed of interest to me. And it's like, oh boy, we're coming up to the 50th anniversary. This was like in 2013. Oh, we're coming up on the 50th anniversary. I bet there's a lot of people doing graphic novels, and I couldn't find anybody. It turned out Dan Mishkin and the artist he worked with, I forget, were doing an adaptation of the Warren Commission report, but they hadn't announced it yet. Don't come to me, a classic artist. So I thought, I got the feel to myself, which is right. When you have the feel to yourself, Ray, I don't know if you or Miguel, this has happened to you, you go, nobody's written about this obvious thing.
Right, yeah.
Either I'm a genius or people have tried and there's no damn interest in it,
Right.
That's true.
Right? No,
that's true.
That's your other thing.
Ernie Cologne.
Ernie Cologne, yes, exactly. So it's a very good book, and but I thought, I got the feel to myself, and I go, okay. I was never obsessed with the Kennedy assassination, but it's always been in the background of my mind.
Right.
50th anniversary. All right, let me start doing a little research. What's the Danny Fingeroth angle on this? And the more I read, I went, oh, this crazy Jewish guy, Jack Ruby. That's like.
I always thought he was Italian, and recently discovered.
Well, he's kind of a mob, because he's mob affiliated.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
From the time he was born, and because that's where I write it. I tend to write. I don't know how much background you gave about me, about interesting 20th century Jews who could well have been my aunts, uncles, or cousins or grandparents,
Sure.
right? I mean, there's that, first generation American born children of Eastern European Jewish immigrants.
Right.
Right. That's my sweet spot on my obsession. And you read about, and just Ruby's life is, he grew up with guys, Jewish guys, but next door to Italian guys in Chicago who became big mobsters. He was highly conversant with mob guys, but like so many of these immigrant ghetto stories, he grew up in the same neighborhood, and in the same era as Benny Goodman,
right?
As the musician, the jazz, the jazz musician, and Arthur Goldberg, Supreme Court Justice, and William S. Paley, who founded CBS Media, right? So, like on the same block. Oh, Jack, right? Like, like that. So that's interesting. Here are the people who came from the same little neighborhood called Maxwell Street. Which later, if you you're kind of New York, you're American
right there.
Ethnic history. Thank you. That's the book.
Yeah. It's a great cover, by the way.
Great, yeah, and it was really clever as a publisher because they only had to pay for licensing one image, but they used it 4 times. Yeah,
that's called getting more bang for your buck, right?
I'd found something online where somebody did something similar, but with 4 different images.
Oh.
I mean, because in a way, the title is a little on, the title and the image is a little on the nose, like the many faces, and then you see many faces. But it works. It is. I mean, it is a layout they sent me, and is the one. They sent some other ones with him just looking totally crazy or whatever. And
right.
Well, it has that rock cover sort of feel to it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It does
this very rock cover look to it.
Yeah.
Because I think
if I was walking down a record aisle and I saw it as an
that's
album,
interesting.
Yeah, like a punk rock record, like like one of those old New York bands or something.
Oh, well, I did the reading for the audio book, so if you want to have an audio version with that cover, you can.
Absolutely.
There you go.
There you go.
So anyway, so Ruby. So I'm reading about this guy, and it just, and because I mean, he's well known. Obviously, he's well known for that one famous image of killing Oswald, but. He's known for owning strip clubs, but he also owned country western clubs, and other kinds of restaurants and theaters. So, he was literally the last guy to give Hank Williams regular work.
Wow,
interesting.
If you read, and because he was in show business, he associated. There's a lot of interesting, prominent names from like the 40s through the 60s that are associated with Jack Ruby. I mean, Mickey Mantle fits into the story.
wow.
A few Bronx folks there. William Kunstler, Tennessee Ernie Ford. So okay. I think if I'm going to do a Ruby thing, if I'm going to do a JFK thing, I think I'm going to focus on Jack Ruby, and then it turns out that Jack. The movie Weekend at Bernie's?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The star of that has gotten Jonathan Silverman.
Right.
His father is a rabbi named Hillel Silverman. He was Jack Ruby's rabbi in Dallas.
Whoa.
Wow.
So and he just died like 2 years ago. He lived to be 99.
Wow.
And my joke used to be about him. After Dallas, he was burned out and he moved to LA. He was on like a career trajectory in the rabbi world. So he went to LA, and he ended up having a lot of celebrities in his congregation. My joke used to be that he was Buddy Hackett's rabbi, but it turned out he actually was Buddy Hackett's rabbi.
That's your intuition right there, right? Your sixth sense.
Wow.
Just in there.
I think he was Sandy Koufax's rabbi. I mean, it was.
Wow.
But it turned out somebody I knew actually knew him. He said, because I was mentioning, saying, "Oh, this is Hillel Silverman. What he wrote a memoir about his life, and part of it was about going to visit Ruby and how crazy Ruby was. So I was put in touch with Hillel Silverman and interviewed him, and I'm interviewing him. And he had all his marbles. He was, but he had all his marbles, but he was losing his vision. He was in his 90s, or I guess he was close to 90 at that point. And he said, and Jack Ruby's trial was like the biggest circus trial until the Chicago 7 or Chicago 8 trial. It was really it was a circus. It was just really for a lot of reasons. And he had this lawyer, Melvin Belli, who at that point was a very flamboyant guy and the most famous lawyer, one of the two most famous lawyers in America. But he says that Rabbi Silverman says to me, I'm almost 90. I can't see anymore. Do you want my note? I can't see anymore, so I'm not writing my book about Jack Ruby. Would you like my notes when I visited Jack in prison every other day for 4 months?
Wow.
I said, okay.
You weren't going to say no, right?
I said to him, but just make a photocopy or a scan. That way I won't have the responsibility of what the guy was, as together mentally as he was. Somehow, 2 days later, I get a FedEx package with his notes, with the rusty paper clips from 1963.
Wow.
And at the time, and I had them, and then I immediately scanned them and sent them back, because you get a feeling like, do I want original documents about the Kennedy assassination in my house? Is that a good idea?
Yeah. So turn around, look around, going, did anybody see this package?
Yeah. I sent them back, and so I used them partly as research. And then I wrote the thing. I was working with a guy named Howard Zimmerman, who I'd worked with it. You may know from Starlog magazine. He had a long history as a science fiction editor. I worked with him at Byron Price, which is where I went after I left Marvel. And he was working at the time as a packager, and he put me together with Rick Geary to do Ruby as a graphic novel. And I wrote a 200-page comic book script, which we couldn't sell because I think there was interest in it. Every publisher we showed it to said, "Oh, I'd buy that," as a customer, as a consumer. But nobody could come up with enough money for Rick to spend 2 years drawing this thing. So I put it on the back burner. And then it was getting towards the 60th anniversary. And then I'd written the Stan Lee biography, which, people seemed to think was pretty well done and sold pretty well. I said, I said to my agent, why don't we try selling this as a more traditional prose biography? And we did. And it was then that I really took Silverman's notes, which I hadn't really delved into. But then after I'd spent 10 years researching, I went, oh, I see what he wrote and his observations, where they fit in. And he's got information and insights that nobody else had, even though Ruby, people sometimes get Ruby and Oswald mixed up. Oswald, of course, was killed 2 days after the assassination. And I think intentionally they did not have a working tape recorder at the Dallas Police Department.
Right.
I think for various reasons, the philosophy or mentality there, I'm guessing, is the less we have, about any case, anybody that interrogate, the less we have on record, the better.
Right.
Right.
Because it really does seem, to have a tape recorder in 1963, every middle class home had some kind of tape recorder,
Right.
It was, they were a big clunky Wallensack, but so there was no tape recorder. And so there's no record, except some handwritten notes of what Oswald may or may not have said when he was being interrogated. Jack Ruby lived for 3 years, and you couldn't shut him up. He had many visitors, and he went on, and he was interviewed on radio and TV and by newspapers constantly. And he was a soft target. If anybody wanted to kill him, it would have been pretty easy to get to him. But so Ruby has, so taking his testimony and the transcript of the trial and the Warren Commission, which, is certainly flawed, but you can't say it's not comprehensive, taking that and intercutting that with the rabbi's memories and quotes from Jack and Jack's family, and so I think, because I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. There's half a dozen conspiracy theories that make sense. I thought I'm not smart enough to figure out what really happened, but I can talk something about this crazy guy's life and how he got from Chicago to Dallas and what his role was in the Dallas underworld community, in the Dallas showbiz community, in the Dallas Jewish community, in the overall just world of Dallas, and because he's a guy who's ignored by history for numerous reasons. He's been written about, but I think so. What anyway? So that, and I like anybody, became obsessed with the whole story. I mean, I'm glad I didn't choose to write about Oswald. I think Oswald's story. I mean, the thing with Ruby was he? Well, both Oswald and Ruby were nuts. The question is, were they lone nuts, and were they and that's why they're both so useful to be manipulated by people, because if you look at their life history, their behavior is erratic and illogical for much of their lives. But Oswald seems to me there's a lot more unanswered questions or ambiguities in Oswald's life than in Ruby's life. Although of course different people think they go back much further than just that. I mean, I don't know. But that's part of the reason I wrote it, and I tried to lay out, a bunch of facts and different people's point of views. But I just thought he'd been neglected by history, and it was just like a fascinating guy, and sort of going back to sort of the immigrant story or the family story. As soon as Ruby had he was one of 8 siblings. His parents were both absolutely crazy. He himself was in and out of different foster care. Even though his parents were alive, they often had some or all the children taken from them. So, but it was a family, and imagine you're watching TV on a Sunday morning, and some big traumatic national crisis has happened, and your crazy brother Jack walks into history and kills Lee Harvey Oswald. Right? I mean, and that's what happened. His family, I don't know if they were literally sitting. Well, actually, his brother tells a story that he was like in a car and they were listening to the radio, and they heard and some heavyset guy in a, with a snap brim hat just can't kill Lee Harvey Oswald, and then of course an hour later it's like, oh, my brother Jack. So what's
going on?
That's crazy.
As crazy as they were, they're like, and even half of them weren't speaking to each other, and it's like a typical crazy family. They all banded together to try to save their brother from the electric chair.
Oh,
right?
wow.
There was no doubt he was guilty. Just shot him on. So the question is, was he crazy? Was his motivation?
Right.
And then so the family bands together, and they, only one of them was what you'd call very financially successful. The rest were all getting by. At least one or two of his other siblings were somehow low-level mob affiliated, but they'd been, arrested on various. But some of them are on the straight and narrow, and I think and his kid brother lived in Detroit and had a successful dry cleaning business. So his family basically bankrupted themselves as pooling their money to buy, but they couldn't agree. And imagine if you're a lawyer, right? I mean, let's say you're a lawyer, or especially like a celebrity lawyer like this Melvin Belli or a couple of other guys.
Yeah,
What a great challenge to try to get off or get a lesser sentence for a guy who killed the first person to kill anybody on live TV. What a challenge if you're a lawyer how do I get this guy to not be executed?
Right. Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The psychiatrist that interviewed him was Dr. Lewis West, which was also known as, Jolly.
Yeah,
Jolly.
he was one of the guys, and he had
Yeah,
done work with the CIA. Was it before or after or both?
both.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a whole train of thought that he injected Ruby with something, and
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's certainly a whole.
Yeah.
A
And
lot of these things seem unlikely to me, but yeah, but he was,
but he's also the one that declared Manson crazy 2 years later.
Oh, was that true?
Yeah, he also injected himself in the trial, kind of like no one hired him. He literally just showed up to the prison saying, like, I'm here to represent Manson. And then Manson, was, he was a bit of a whack job, but he became more of a whack job after his visit with the acute psychosis.
It's like I said, I talk about the guy in the book, and then there's he was alone with Ruby and had access to him. What they're supposed to have given Ruby LSD or something like that, or
I think it was part of the MK Ultra that they insinuate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't find enough proof that he did, but that's the problem. So many things are plausible.
That's correct.
Over
the passage of time, it's about getting that documentation, right?
And really, if you're in a jail with someone and it's only two of you, who's there to document it? If the person's going to inject you with LSD, he's not going to fill out a form saying yes. And
right.
But
I mean, I don't think they had. I mean, I think Ruby's privacy was. He was, from what I can tell from photos and just descriptions, I think he was in a cell, so it didn't have walls. It was a cell, but it was because they didn't want anybody to come and take a shot at him. It was isolated, but I mean, I think there was always a guard there.
Right.
Whether the guy was watching that close.
Right.
That's the other thing, because most of us were trained to just trust doctors.
Right.
Like, we wouldn't think, oh, the doctor's going to do something. You might just be like, oh, whatever. He's giving him some medicine or something. Whatever. Maybe he's sick or something. It's very natural to be that trusting and maybe not think of it if that's what happened. Of course.
And he was there for 3 years. I mean, weirdly enough, the thing, because with the way it's told, I mean, he seemed to have, when he did die, and of course his theories, he was injected with this or that, and he had pneumonia, cancer, and something else, and I forget, and heart disease. I forget what literally killed him.
Right.
But it does seem weird to me, right? That here's a guy who is being visited by everybody. I think they literally. I think he had like stomach cancer, but they didn't bother. They gave him Pepto-Bismol, because they thought he had an upset stomach. They gave him there's a lot of questions.
And Dr. West worked for 2 decades at UCLA, and he was also a consultant on the CIA's MK Ultra project.
Yeah, that's all true, and that's why he's associated. But I think he was also another one of these guys, like these lawyers, who was a publicity hound and wanted to be where the action was.
Yes, exactly.
And
exactly.
there's all these kind of, logic trees. Right? Okay, so let's say, I don't know how he could have, but let's say he injected Ruby with something. Was it on behalf of the government, or was just some crazy shit he himself?
Right. Maybe like a truth serum or something, like trying to figure out something. Trying to get into his head,
and because his trial, I mean, the trial was, you can read about it in the book, but the trial, people showed up. There's the Dorothy Kilgallen angle, who she was a famous. Right. Well, she was most famous to me as a kid for being a panelist on the What's My Line quiz show on TV.
Right.
Along with Bennett Cerf, who there's a big biography out about him. The founder of Random House, or the co-founder of Random House Publishing.
That's right.
And the moderator of What's My Line, the host,
right,
was a guy named John Charles Daly, who turned out was married to the Earl Warren's daughter.
Oh my
That's the
Wow.
Warren Commission. And of course, the prosecutor, remember
Right.
Roe v. Wade?
Yes.
Yes.
The prosecutor in the Ruby case was Henry Wade, who that case is named after,
Holy crap.
Mm.
who had never lost a murder case before,
Right.
Wow.
even if he had to mess with evidence.
Wow.
Which is
So-
why, which is another reason the Ruby's family went through hot and cold running lawyers.
My question is to you, because you've done a lot of research on this. How does a guy that goes from owning clubs end up shooting Oswald? Like,
Well,
what's
he
the
was a
journey
violent
that he
guy.
takes to that?
He grew up with, it is sort of the class. It's almost like a Warner Brothers movie, right? Like a Warner Brothers
Mhm.
1930s movie. Like he grew up in this neighborhood where supposedly he ran errands for Al Capone.
Mhm.
Right.
And he was a very tough. He was a violent guy.
Mhm.
He was known as being a violent guy whose first response to anything was to punch somebody or hit them from behind with a blackjack. But that's a good question because he had never been thought of as a hitman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He was, and he would, and he was never arrested. Jeffrey was in a lot of rooms when a lot of people got killed over the years,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But
that's
he
one
was.
thing.
There was only one time he was like a strong arm guy for a Chicago union, and two union leaders had a altercation that turned a little violent.
Mm.
I think one shot the other in the back, literally, and Ruby was in the room,
Right.
and he was
Wow.
questioned on that. But no, he was never accused of murder, or he was he was known for being a violent guy who would as soon beat the shit, who would sometimes be, he owned this strip club.
Mhm.
Um, and he would serve as his own MC and his own bouncer. There were times where he would be like literally pounding a guy's head against the pavement on the sidewalk. Some drunk who had just
Wow.
did something jacketsuit inappropriate, and then he'd suddenly stop and he'd go like, "Oh, what am I doing?" So he'd snap
Wow.
into and out of these kind of fugue states, and then
Mhm.
he'd give the guy like a free pass to come back and here's a free pizza, be like, so
There,
so
there
how
are theories that Oswald knew Ruby, but that was never proven. That was never proven. There were those
right?
lists.
There's theories that there were two Oswald. There's all these theories that are.
Yeah, a
Now,
tons.
Yeah.
look,
So how
is
do you get through all that and say, "Well, this is the story I want to tell"? Like, how do you get? Because it's a lot of shit.
there is a lot of shit. Well, I tried to just do the through line of the guy. Kind of here's what he did,
Right.
and here's what and here are the top three theories. I mean, it's quite possible
Hmm.
while he wasn't a hitman,
Hmm.
it's quite possible that maybe somebody put out the call.
Hmm.
If you get near this guy and can take a shot, do it, because he was trying to get in. When Oswald was being questioned earlier in the weekend, Ruby was, even as I say this, I contradict myself. Ruby made it his business to ingratiate himself with the cops
Hmm.
because he ran a strip club, and they and I think not everything that went on there was on the up and up.
Right.
Um, so
Right.
he was always literally bringing sandwiches to cops, and who knows? I'm sure there was payoffs going on.
Right.
He managed to survive in
Right.
this sort of quasi legal world of Dallas, and part of that was by really. So he was, because what people often ask me is, well, how did he get into the police station? To even get close enough,
Yeah.
Right.
and which is it's if you study the situation at all, it seems to me, because he made it his business. I don't know if anybody besides me called him this, but he he was almost the mayor of downtown Dallas in the sense that he made it his business to give out free passes, free food, to do favors, to just to know everybody,
Hmm.
Mm.
and plus he liked being sort of a minor celebrity. There's an
Yeah.
incredible picture of him. There was this 12-year-old black kid who was kind of a Stevie Wonder type kid, not blind, but
Right.
a precociously talented little kid that Ruby was managing for a while till that blew up in his face. But there's this incredible photo. It's in the book, and you can find it online if you're too cheap to buy the book. Of
I ordered it. It hasn't come in. I ordered it on Amazon a few days ago.
of
Right.
Ruby, like in a like in a tada pose, like next to this little kid, and you can see that Ruby would probably love to have been a comedian or a singer. He had that show business. So there's, so it's possible that the word went out. If you get near this guy, take a shot at him. And he always carried. I mean, both he and Oswald, aside from whatever their own particular violent proclivities may have been, they both were in the army. Right? Ruby was.
Right.
So they both were trained how to shoot. This was like a common thing, right? There was a Ruby during World War II, and of course Oswald's whole story of like, Oswald lying about his age, joining the Marines, and then declaring that he was a communist. Right?
And then
that was an unusual career choice.
Yes. Sure. And then to defect and then to return and not to be arrested after defecting.
Right, and that opens up all
right.
And the question is it? And among the questions are, well, was that intentional? Was he some kind of agent,
right,
groomed, or was there just like bureaucratic incompetence that allowed this guy to come back? And he lived, and of course, and this might be worth a whole show, maybe not to me, but there were those 2 years that Oswald lived in the Bronx.
Right.
First, he lived. He was wanted for truancy in New Orleans. So his mother hightailed it to New York, where his stepbrother was living. But then he kind of threatened his sister-in-law with a knife, so that made them not that welcome in the in their stepbrother's home, all the way east on 92nd Street. So then they moved to the Bronx, where again, where supposedly he got in trouble for firing BB gun pellets into neighbors' windows from his Bronx apartment.
I've done that when I was a kid.
Oh man!
But the funny thing is, you can look this up,
right?
Because he was, had a habit of not showing up in school. Well, he was very intelligent, but he didn't like school. You can find like records of Bronx social workers' reports on 14-year-old Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, it's kind of wild, and including people who went on to like one guy being prominent, I think, in Bronx politics. Another guy was the subject of a cover story in New York Magazine about psychiatrists who sleep with their patients. I mean, he's like all these.
Wow.
So there's a whole. That's a screenplay right there. That's a movie I should do.
That's
Oswald in the Bronx.
Oswald in the Bronx. There was a thing about the Carousel Club that there were some witnesses that said that they had seen Oswald and Ruby in one of his nightclubs, but weeks before the assassination. But investigators eventually dismissed that, and then there was a fake transcript in 2009, which there was a conversation between the two, but they're saying that it was fictional, that it was for a potential movie deal. That
I think so. Look, Oswald worked a lot of marginal jobs.
Yeah,
it wouldn't shock me if he worked for a day or two as a busboy in the club. I don't know, or just came into the club.
Right.
I mean, one thing that really, I did this a couple of times, is when you go to Dallas, you go to any historical locale, and you see where things are,
right,
geographically.
Right.
You can't see Ruby's Club; they tore that down years ago. But there's it's a car city, and so nothing is very far away.
Right.
You can.
Yeah.
So I tried to be. Anytime I would, even as a mental exercise, I would try to see, okay, let's say this is what happened.
Right.
My problem with almost all these theories,
right,
is that they require so many things to happen
in between. Yeah.
So many things have to click into place randomly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not random. Somebody has to have a plan where no no highly fallible human involved fucks up in any way. Things have to click into place in so many in sequence and
Yeah.
something, you know. But so it wouldn't, then you see these things, these doctors, a lot of doctors who either literally examined Kennedy, or examine the evidence, believe there had to have been a shot from the grassy knoll.
Right.
It's like I said, it's too big for me. That's why I focused on Ruby. I think so. Even though it's not a million, so for me, it's like here's this crazy story.
Right.
Yeah.
I have the testimony of the rabbi actually went to his grave. I mean, literally, he was 99. He's in the hospital,
Right.
and of course, all people want to ask him is, was it a conspiracy? And he says, no, it was not. Well, I don't know. He, who knows what his, was he looking,
Right.
did he have some reason, and he wasn't literally on the spot anyway. Well, like I said, if you read the book, I hope you'll see. So that.
Did you mention anything like Marilyn Monroe or anything like that in there? Like, does she come up in the book at all, or not really?
The biggest, there are celebrities. I mean, Hank Williams might be the biggest celebrity.
Right.
There was. Right, you get to this subculture of where the underworld and crime and the underworld and show business and politics all mixed together. Like today, you get this.
Yeah.
So there was probably the most famous stripper in America was a woman named Candy Barr. That was not her birth name, by the way. She was Juanita Dale Slusher.
Mhm.
She was from a small town in Texas, and she, for a while, was involved with a mobster named Mickey Cohen, who was a pretty famous Los Angeles gangster of the 40s and 50s. And she was friends with Jack Ruby. She would not strip in his club, even though she worked for his competitors around the corner.
Mm.
She wouldn't. But Jack and his sister kind of protected her, but then at times they also would sort of arrange for her to dance at bachelor parties where it was clear there was more going on than just dancing. And yet he took this it was a schizophrenic kind of thing where he would, let me put it, I learned much more about the human trafficking subculture of Dallas than I ever thought I would or wanted to through researching this. It was, again, a lot like today. So,
Yeah.
But
Sounds familiar.
So when she had been arrested, she in order to protect one of a future owner of the Dallas Cowboys, she took a marijuana bust for him. And so a lot of this, it's just fit. So she couldn't work. So Ruby, who had this really weird relationship with his dogs. This is, again, more than I wanted to know. Ruby's relationship with his dogs was because there were rumors he was gay. He had one of those Nathan Detroit 14-year-old engagements to this woman, to a woman who we were never really sure what their relationship was. He claimed to have sex with all his strippers, but I've never seen testimony from anybody, man or woman, that said I had sex with Jack Ruby.
Interesting.
So he brings, but he could do. This is this crazy compassionate thing. He drives to see Candy Barr, who's out of work, and he brings her to a male and female dog, so she can have them mate and start a dog breeding business. And there's a great quote from Candy Barr where she says, "It didn't work out. They just didn't like each other that way."
Sounds like a metaphor.
Oh.
So Ruby was capable of great compassion, but he was, like I said, certainly capable of beating the shit out of people, which he did regularly, especially people who couldn't fight back. But
Exactly.
but there's no record of him. So he was, that, and as I said, it started as a graphic novel. Then but in the 10 years between conceiving it as a graphic novel project. In the book, I learned a lot more, researched a lot more, met a lot more people, and of course, my best story.
Right.
I have a couple of great stories. My best story. You would think, and look, let's face it, Jack Ruby being Jewish was fascinating to me, but maybe not the proudest moment in Jewish history. You know, there's enough. I think,
Yeah.
but I think
Proudest moments in Jewish history. Like a segment we could do, right?
Not so proud moments.
Not
so
so proud moments.
but I think enough time passed that people kind of look, that oddly enough, many of my speaking gigs were with Jewish organizations. So I'm there in Dallas right around the time the book came out. You know, it came out for the 60th anniversary, so it's November 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving a talk sponsored by a combination of the Sixth Floor Museum,
Right.
the Dallas Jewish Historical Society.
Right.
I'm standing in front of a room full of old Jews, which means these are all people whose aunts, uncles, and parents all knew Jack Ruby.
Exactly.
And I'm telling them about their own history, and I feel like an idiot. You know, I have my PowerPoint up.
Right.
And among the things I'm showing, Gilbert Gottfried used to have a podcast when he was alive.
Right.
And one night, Gabe Kaplan, you remember Welcome Back, Father?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Show, yeah.
Yep.
And Mr. Cotter,
Back
Gabe
harder.
Kaplan, you know, he still does some show business, but mostly he's been a professional poker player for the past 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see him on celebrity poker tournaments. And he also will sometimes do a performance Groucho Marx in a one-man show because he knew Groucho, and does a great Groucho. So I've got on my PowerPoint a picture, and he had, in the very beginning of his career, when he was a teenager, he auditioned for Ruby in Dallas. And he tells a story about it on Gilbert's podcast. His crazy stories in Buffalo, and a bunch of strippers. They hear there's work in Dallas, so I may be conflating a couple of stories, but they drive through the night in this crazy trip, and they get to Dallas, and they go to meet Joe Campisi, who runs a restaurant, which is where Ruby had dinner a couple of nights before. You know, and it's right now Campisi is kind of a mob theme restaurant, but then it was. You know, they kind of make a big thing out of their possible connection to the Kennedy assassination. You know,
Uh-huh.
so they go there, and Campisi sends them to Jack Ruby, and he auditions for Ruby, and it's a very funny story, which I recounted while showing a picture of Gabe Kaplan from the Mr. Cotter days.
Yeah.
And then and it goes well. Nobody accuses me of being like a carpetbagger from New York trying to like telling the story wrong. And I sit down to sign books, and one of the old Jews comes up to me, and I say, "Who should I make it out to?" And he says, "Make it out to Gabe." And I look at him, and then I go, "Oh, wait a minute. You seem to be Gabriel Kaplan."
Right.
And for no good reason that I can think of, you were my audience in a talk in Dallas while I was giving a talk showing your picture and telling your story.
Right.
Which is in the book, too. And he says, "Yeah, what are you doing for dinner?" So that was...
Wow. That's surreal.
He was part-time in Dallas for various reasons, and some friend of his just said to him, "Hey, there's some guy talking about your pal Jack Ruby." So that was an unexpected... Like if it was New York or LA, you figure maybe a celebrity will show up or something. But in Dallas, I wasn't...
Right. That's cool.
So
there was also like this Mary Thompson who said her daughter worked for Jack Ruby and said that he was running guns for the Cubans, I guess for the Bay of Pigs or something. Like, you know, like running.
He's reputed to have run guns for both sides.
Yeah, for both sides. Yeah.
He was a good businessman.
Government, you know.
Yeah.
And
anti-casters and
and look, you you can certainly see this in his behavior in general.
Right.
Sometimes he seems like a total sap who can be easily manipulated and used, and sometimes he seems to flip into take charge mode.
Interesting.
You know, there's an incredible I quote about and talk about in the book during the Warren Commission report,
Right.
the point where he seems to almost take charge of the questioning,
Mm-hmm.
and get
Interesting.
uh, and he's treating like these guys, who are both physically and in terms of their jobs, powerful figures, Gerald Ford and Earl Warren himself,
Hmm.
and the senator, what the hell's his name? Anyway, it's a big shot guys, and he's suddenly like ordering them around.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
There are other times when people would come visit him, and he would hide under his desk because he thought, either he was delusional, which I think he was, or he was the world's greatest actor. Because sometimes
Right,
he was
right.
totally helpless and hallucinating. He
Or possibility that maybe there's a possibility that his childhood had created a
oh,
mechanism for him to defend himself at times, and other times, sort of like fight and flight sort of thing. It seems like it just switched on and off from your description.
that's a good summary. He grew up. Among the people he grew up with was a guy named Barney Ross. I don't know if you know that name. When boxing was like a heavily Jewish sport,
Mhm.
as it had proved to be for future generations of minorities looking to literally punch their way out of poverty and out of oppression.
Mhm.
So he and Barney Ross were pals. I think Ruby moved. If you look at especially in slow motion at the scene at the video of Ruby shooting Oswald,
Mm-hmm.
he moves like a boxer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very.
Because he's a heavy set guy. And the only other public figure I can think of who moves like that is maybe Jackie Gleason on The Honeymooners. When you think of a heavy guy but who moves grace.
Yeah.
So Ruby, you can see, moves like a guy who was trained as a boxer, but I don't think he was ever as good. And then Barney Ross went on to
Or Street Fighter, if anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely not an assassin, because an assassin I don't think would have been so bold. So to your point, that I don't think that was something he did in whatever crime life that he had, because he
Yeah.
did it so boldly and he got caught. The point
Well,
about
he not only got caught. Look, he was the guy. People say, "How did Ruby get in there?" That sort of goes back to what I was saying. All the cops knew him. All the reporters knew him. That it would have been more unusual if Jack Ruby was not on the scene when Oswald was being transferred than
Interesting.
he was.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's my take on it anyway. And also, the cops.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were trying so hard to show that Oswald wasn't being beaten up. Although I think if you look at him, I think he was beaten up.
Yeah, big old black guy, yeah.
At least they were trying to show that he was awake and conscious.
Right.
That they were, that they,
Or essentially, there's no court trial for Oswald because Ruby killed him. So it's like it's like considered open and shut, even though it really isn't.
It's open and shut. But then but what do you do with this guy? What do you do with a Jack? I mean,
right.
I think. Look, I think
people proclaim Ruby a hero, and other people were like, "No."
Oh, he got telegrams. There's bags full of telegrams and fan mail.
Yeah,
that he got.
Yeah.
But then a weird thing happened, and even though I was alive then, I was a kid. I wasn't. But
you were Fantastic Four. You weren't politics, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it was right. Fantastic Four. It was. It seemed that in a lot of the public consciousness, it was almost as if he had killed Kennedy. Because the public lost they didn't have a person or a trial to focus their attention and anger on.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, and then there's this whole Dorothy Kilgallen thing, which Dorothy Kilgallen was on that game. She was most famous to me as a kid as being on that game show, but she was an investigative reporter, but something of a yellow journalist. She was a lot of sensationalistic stuff. She claimed she had a. I mean, basically, to show what a soft target Ruby was.
Mm.
Every recess in his trial would be like an impromptu press conference.
Mm.
Dozens, if not hundreds, of people can, So I think if anybody wanted to kill him,
Yeah, they could have.
they could have.
They
But
could've.
Dorothy Gallen claims that she had a 5 minute private conversation with him, in which he told her everything that he didn't tell anybody else.
Mm.
I find that highly unlikely. Nonetheless, she did have kind of a suspicious. She was one of those people who had a potentially suspicious death a couple of years later. But again, it was a couple of years later.
Right.
We have to, and she claimed she was waiting to like put all the pieces together and blow the lid on the Kennedy assassination. Okay, but maybe you shouldn't wait if you think your life might be in danger, or
Release it immediately. Don't hold it back,
why
right?
do you wait 2 years? Why do you not make a backup copy of whatever you were writing? But there's books. There's like a trilogy of books written by one guy about Mark Shaw, who, and again, it's funny. Some of these people, you go through the books or the interviews or the podcast or the data,
Mhm.
and somebody says one thing that seems not crazy or logical, and you go, well, I got to give him credence to other stuff he says. But what I have,
Right.
one thing I found, and feel free to argue with me, or there's something about the Kennedy assassination that takes otherwise rational, logical, step by step people who just it sends them into like some zone
Right.
where their ration. It seems to me their rationality or their sense of logic runs out, and I feel like they're so passionately, because I've spent a lot of money buying books by
Right.
people whose writing I otherwise respect and admire, and I
Right.
go, I've just read 1,000 pages and I still don't understand what they're saying about the Kennedy assassination.
Well, that's kind of like the Epstein files. They'll be talking about that for 30, 40, 50 years.
But it's funny. I
It'll
mean,
be
that's part
forever.
of it's that flood the zone thing. It's like
Yeah.
after I mean, like I was saying about the Warren Commission, people may may have valid arguments against the Warren Commission's conclusions.
Right.
But holy shit, there is an astonishing amount of data and people you can't say they didn't do their homework. You may not like the result of their homework. And maybe
I think it's because you had people that Kennedy directly fired and they put them in charge of and brought them back and
Dulles?
people they're not just fired, but had like a bitter enmity with
yes.
wasn't just it went beyond.
Right.
And look at that. Then you get to right. I mean, I can't, all the theory. Right. If murder, and I don't pretend to be a criminologist, but I mean, if the things I've learned from watching, cop shows on TV is,
Right.
is the three pillars of a murder investigation: a means, motive, and opportunity. Well, there's a lot of people hated Kennedy. A lot of people. Had access to guns and whatever, and a lot of people had the opportunity. That's a lot of people had the opportunity. A lot of people were there. I don't, so I realized I was not smart enough to solve it. So I just thought, let me see what I can dig up about this Jack Ruby. So that's what I did, and try to come at it from a different angle. Including the rabbi's notes, which weren't why I did it, but once I had those notes, I said, well,
why not?
I can't say nobody else has seen those notes. I think they have, but I don't think anybody made use of them like I did or studied them like I did. Because on a surface read, you can sort of think they're not much, but when you read them repeatedly and compare them to other writings and other findings, they become really. Like if you can, because he dated them all. So if you say, oh, here's what happened in court today, and here's who testified, and then here's how, you have to kind of put a bunch of puzzle pieces together. Anyway, that's.
Well, it's a good thing that you did, because ultimately, Jack Ruby in the popular discourse, it's like there's a Kennedy assassination, then the whole hubbub about Oswald, and then Jack Ruby just sort of falls into this mysterious figure in the popular cultural discourse.
Right.
Not much is really talked about him, other than a few things in the background where it's like, oh yeah, MK Ultra and all this other stuff. So it's important that you took the time to do that, because it fleshes it out and makes him more than just like this, almost like a plot line, right? Enter Jack Ruby, shoot, he goes to jail, then we're off to something else in our history. So it's very important to flesh him out as a person, and seeing that he's a very volatile person. That makes it very fascinating, because it isn't like a cold, calculated man who was like, a hitman professional, like Woody Harrelson's father. He's actually a hitman. He's in jail.
Right.
So I think that's very important that you did
Woody
that.
Harrelson's father. I mean, that's an incredible and I think he fit. There are some theories,
There's
the
grassy knoll, yeah.
some theories that put Woody Harrelson's father as one of the alleged shooters on the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Woody. Well, you know how Woody. I mean, the Woody Harrelson father story, that he literally killed the judge and killed her. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I tell you, a lot of this stuff is like peripheral.
Right.
You hear about it, unless you turn around and deep dive into it, you get something else that's created. So we're picking our own rabbit holes to jump down.
Well, that's it. And that's, it's kind of like the Epstein thing, is that it's not that. I mean, it probably seems like there's still another 3 million documents that we haven't seen. But right, it's full flooding the zone. There's so much information. I mean, I didn't know till I saw there was that movie that David Mandel wrote or directed about G. Gordon Liddy on a couple of years ago.
Right.
See that? Where apparently Liddy kept alluding to the fact. I never heard Liddy or the other guy. Who was the other guy who was partnering up with Liddy? Howard Hunt. Maybe Howard Hunt.
Howard Hunt, yeah. Howard Hunt.
Whichever one Woody Harrelson played in that series.
Howard Hunt was arrested with Woody Harrelson's father, with the hobos, and then were released by the police.
Oh, okay. So whichever one Woody Harrelson played in that show,
right,
spent his life alluding to the fact that he was somehow involved in the Kennedy assassination.
Yes.
And then I didn't realize, according to this TV show, which again, I know that doesn't mark me as the world's greatest scholar. According to this fiction TV show, I did look it up afterwards. Apparently, Harrison's Hunt's whoever Woody played with, Hunter Liddy, that guy's wife was getting suspicious about the Kennedy assassination and other things, and she died in a plane crash, supposedly on her way to tell. I had not ever heard that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Hunt also on his deathbed confessed that he and the government had something to do with Kennedy's death. And also one of Ruby's associates was also one of the Watergate guys with Hunt when they broke into the Watergate hotel.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the thing that I don't think we'll ever know, or maybe somebody smarter than me.
No.
Right.
For all we know, one of those many confessions on YouTube is right. Maybe one of those people, maybe one of those crazy people is telling the truth, but how would we know?
Right. So I love your book because, the topic is, I remember when you were just talking about putting it out and getting it published, and people always talk to me and say, oh, why do you mix comics and politics, and why do you mix these things up? And I always felt that it's our responsibilities as writers of fiction, of comic books, to kind of like give the platform or like the space for people to say, hey, it's okay to talk about something other than comics, and I think your book does that, because you come from a background of Marvel and Spider-Man as an editor and as a writer, and you've done all this stuff, and now you're doing this political thing, and I think it's a good I guess like springboard for comic book readers to say, hey, maybe it's okay if I read about politics and talk about politics.
Yeah.
And I think there should be more of that. So, I mean, just to pick your brain a little bit, if you had a pick of the litter, like what would you do next if you were going to do another one of these books who would be your area of focus or someone that you would
Well,
love?
I mean, this is sort of you've asked a bunch of questions in one, because of course one has to do with my interest, the other has to do with my career and the realities of the marketplace.
Right.
You know,
But just dream, like like what would be like your next thing that you would love to do if the editor was right, the publishing house,
yeah.
everything was set up properly. What would you?
Well,
Who would you love to tackle?
I mean, I've as Ray, I think I'm a lifelong Bob Dylan fan.
Uh-huh.
So I've had a couple of different Bob Dylan pitches going around.
Uh-huh.
That,
He's
so,
very prolific too.
I find him a fascinating figure in his work and his role in American life and politics even. And he's another interesting Jewish American figure that's kind of complicated. So he wouldn't be in the parents, aunts, uncles. He's more the age of my older brothers. That's sort of. And so, in some ways, a very typical story, in some ways atypical. A book I've been trying to. So in terms of the Danny Fingeroth career, which I know everybody's dying to know about, the Ruby book was the first time I wrote a book about something that wasn't about comics, and it was really a test for me. I mean, it started as a graphic novel project, but it became, and I wanted to see if a publisher would pick it up and how it would be received. And so, look, and the publisher did pick it up. Not as big a publisher, Macmillan, St. Martin's Press division. Macmillan picked up the Stan Lee book, and you really get spoiled when you're published by a company like that. They have this publicity and promotion machine. It's like it was like being back in Marvel in some ways. Just it's incredible. They have this reach. As you guys know. Almost as hard as creating something is having people know about it. That's in a way harder, right?
Yeah.
So then a smaller press, very nice people, Chicago Review Press, and nobody said to me, and as reviewers are not always kind. Nobody said to me, "You got it all wrong. You're just a comic book guy. How dare you write?" I mean. I got some great blurbs from people that blows my mind that gave them to me, including like Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, raved about it. Oh, that's a pretty good blurb.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good blurb. Yeah.
Gabe Kaplan gave me a blurb. I mean, as a list, I have a list of really of people that did Pfeiffer. I don't know. Pfeiffer didn't give me a blurb. Pfeiffer gave me Jules Pfeiffer, who just died last year, gave me a great blurb for the Stan Lee book. What Pfeiffer did give me was he pointed me to a quote about something he had written about Jack Ruby that I use as the epigraph for the book. So I felt like, oh, look, people will take me seriously about something other than comics. Was it the world's greatest seller? Well, not until now, but now that it's on your show, I'm sure it did okay, but So I'm testing. I'd like to write more about comics. So then my last books about comics came out, except for the Stan book, which is the Stan Lee book is as much about the history of comics as it is about Stan Lee. So I'd like to revisit the history, of comics, and I'm working on a memoir now because people keep telling me I should write a memoir. So Dean Haspiel has been interviewing me. And out of something that sort of fits in, I had this idea that even if you thought Johnny Carson was really square, and as a teenager I did, when you're a teenager in in the 1960s and and a young person in the 70s, there's nobody more square than Johnny Carson. But you can't deny the influence he and by extension other talk show hosts have on our lives and our own self-image. So I mentioned to my agent, I said, I've got a book not an academic book, a mainstream book, but about how Carson and the other hosts, especially for men, are part of what form our own self-image, right? When you walk into a room sometimes, don't you think you have like the Tonight Show theme playing in the background? You
Yeah.
know?
I used to have dreams of being on the Johnny Carson show when I was a kid.
You see,
Wow.
okay, there you go. So I mean, it's
Like,
and you know, even if
very influential.
so my agent said to me, "Oh, it's a great idea. I could definitely sell that."
Right.
2 years later, I've written like 3 or 4 versions of, and then when Trump started going after the late night hosts, I figured, oh my God, now it's topical.
Right.
So I have this, what I think and what my agent thinks, and I've had a lot of people think it's a really good proposal. A lot of people who don't think it's a really good proposal so far are actual book publishers. You know,
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
or they might like it and just not feel like it's. The title is called the working title. It's called "Going to Bed with America," and the subtitle is
Great
"If late
title.
is dead, how come we're still talking about it so much?" You know?
Right.
So, you know, so that's I mean that's sort of the sweet, I hope the sweet spot between something I'm interested in, you know, and including, I mean, you look at all, I guess I'm interested in 60s culture in a certain way, and
Mhm.
how,
It's a generation in a
you
sense.
know,
Yeah.
and how, you know, I mean, you know, it's history in general, but since I grew up in the 60s and 70s, how, for better or worse, a lot of it worse, but um, you know, how did the 60s end up with Donald Trump as president, right? That's like
Right.
that's the most disappointing product of
Yeah.
Yeah.
generation, right? I
I
mean, the old,
call it the Republicans' revenge. They say we're gonna get all your kids were all the all the grandparents that were hippies. Like we're gonna turn your grandchildren against you, make them pro-gun, pro-military.
well, I mean, that's sort of
And like,
the story of civilization, right? But
right. And then like neo-Christians, you know, it's like it's like
Yeah,
I
but it's
know, you know, and of course, and look, even back, look, let's face it, the 60s encompassed both, you know, flower children and the Hell's Angels, right? Even then, right, it wasn't consistent even at its alleged height, you know.
right.
But you know, so a Dylan book. Um, you know, I mean, the reason I'm working on a memoir, I mean, obvious, you know, because sometimes I think, what can I accomplish with a memoir besides just having, like, you know, members of my family be mad at me? You know, I mean, what, you know, 10 people would buy it, but half my family would stop talking to me, you know. And so I think, you know, I think I'm, you know, I think I'm probably, you know, for obvious reasons, focus it on the comic book, you know, years I worked at Marvel, you know,
Right.
although to me the interesting part is,
Mhm.
you know, look, you guys are, Miguel, you a native New Yorker or as well?
well, not really a native New York. I'm from all over the place, but I lived in New York for 10 years.
Okay, but Ray, you're you New York native?
I was born and raised in New York, yeah. And Miguel is actually right now he's in France as we're speaking. So
Oh, okay. Hoo-ha. Um,
this is our international show. We got both
no,
French and American politics.
I've always been fascinated by New York,
Mhm.
especially I went, if you'll forgive some name dropping, I went to Bronx Science, you know.
Yeah, great
But
school.
so that means I've gone from like whatever. I'm a native Manhattanite, which means in some ways I'm highly sophisticated, but in other ways I'm highly provincial, right? I mean, there's some ways that living in New York, you have access to all this stuff, but you really, but in some ways it's a small town, and then whatever your neighborhood is or your social group is, it becomes even more of a silo.
Right.
You know,
Very
so I went to this. I went to a Jewish day school, to a yeshiva, till 8th grade, and then I went to Bronx Science, where I was suddenly meeting, you know, yes, smart kids, but from all walks of life, you know, black, Hispanic, Asian,
it's like the United
poor, rich, you know,
Yeah.
kids who literally were in gangs and kids who like
Mhm.
barely left there. You know, I mean, just people with a. So it just, you know, it sort of brought home to me how New York is this
Mhm.
incredible melting pot, or just,
Mhm.
you know, this place where people are just pushed together,
Right.
whether on the subway or in an office, And
Right.
so that might be for me like the ultimate thing, like some kind of, if probably not, some kind of fictional work
Mhm.
that would draw on that. That would draw on that multiplicity of
Mhm.
cultures.
It's like a living Eisner comic, when he talks about the
I guess so. I guess so.
It is. It is.
talking
And
to
there's nothing like
cockroaches,
it.
It's like every New Yorker, I've fantasized my whole life about not living here. But
Right, exactly. Yes.
thank God I've lived here my whole life,
Right,
Wow.
exactly.
right? Like every New Yorker, every New Yorker has a plan to either buy a co-op on Central Park West or to move to Montana, right? Every New Yorker has both those fantasies going.
Yes, simultaneously. Yeah, it's like right now I'm living upstate New York, and my thoughts are: should I move back to the Bronx or should I move to Pennsylvania, or maybe I'll move to New York, New Jersey? It's like moving to
Wow.
New York, New Jersey is like moving back to the Bronx. It's like
Right. And I mean, yeah. Well, New York is as many people have said, but I guess I'm thinking most recently of a Leonard Cohen song called "Democracy."
Leonard Cohen. Yep.
yeah,
That song "Democracy" is coming to the USA.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
But he said it's coming to America first, the cradle, the best and the worst, and I think New York is even more so.
yes,
It's a place all onto its own. It's
Yeah.
very unique.
Well, especially when you grow up, because it's like, it's like New York, George Gershwin. Oh, but wait, what's all this dog shit outside my front door? Right? Those are like it's like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and then here's the dog shit. It's just like
Yeah, it's
before you came on, we were talking about like I was talking about a YouTuber who was talking about like how a lot of the Orthodox Jews are cheating the system with welfare and stuff. I was like, well, that's not news. That's been going on. Where do you think the Puerto Ricans and the blacks we learned this? Because we're all kind of like on top of each other in New York City, and we all got the secret. We all are doing that. It's like we're all learning how to
hustle.
get a little money for the kid. It's like things like that. Trying to get a little welfare for because everything's so expensive in New York.
well,
Even our language. We're using Yiddish words when we're not Jewish. It's like it
and
becomes
using
part of the
Spanish words
vernacular.
are not Spanish. I
Right,
mean,
exactly. Yeah.
once again, to default to pop culture and cliche, which I'm prone to do, is
Yeah.
Jerry Garcia and Robert Hunter said New York's got the ways and means.
Yes. Yeah. We're layered and
It's got Wall Street.
yeah.
Wall Street fleeces everybody.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, and
like-
gets away with it.
Right.
They can be snorting cocaine off of,
Right.
sewer
Well,
manhole.
here's the thing that sometimes strikes me, and maybe you guys, being younger, might not. Maybe you'd have a Mickey Mantle. Is that name as magic to you as it is to me?
Yeah, baseball, yeah, Yankees, yeah.
Yeah, and if you grew up in New York in the 50s and 60s,
Mm-hmm.
and you were a baseball fan, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and you had any ties to the Bronx, which
Mhm.
I did. My parents were from the Bronx. They both worked in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Mantle was this golden,
Mm-hmm.
dare I say, Aryan god
Mm-hmm.
who was highly flawed, was an alcoholic. I think was pretty, got into a lot of fights, was not the most faithful husband, to say the least.
Right.
And yet here was this golden god representing this city of Jews, Italians, Puerto Ricans, African American, right? He was the only thing. I mean, I guess a lot of Yankee haters who maybe, but say,
Yeah.
Dodgers fans, right?
somehow he just Mickey Mantle, Marilyn Monroe,
Right.
I don't know, James Dean from that era, but Mantle, because my family was from the Bronx and we had so many Bronx ties,
Mm-hmm.
and we're Yankee fans, even though there was that old saying, rooting for the Yankees like rooting for U.S. Steel used to be the thing, but there was something that I find really fascinating about this Mickey Mantle was something that I think even Dodger fans or Giants, New York Giants baseball fans, there was always that trilogy, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Duke Snyder.
Right.
But for people with a Bronx orientation, I think Mickey was really, and it was just so funny because he was this, like all gods,
Mm-hmm.
he was highly flawed. He had this osteomyelitis, I think it was called,
Mm-hmm.
where I think literally if not his first game, maybe his first World Series, he fought his spikes on the on like a irrigation, on a watering thing,
Yeah.
in the outfield, and broke something because he had really brittle bones, and he would spend 2 hours for every game just literally bandaging himself protectively. There was something about the fact that guy was, to many New Yorkers who probably knew nothing about baseball, just this Aryan god representing the city that was this multi-ethnic hodgepodge was such an interesting thing.
Right.
Right.
I mean, he was married to his wife Merrill for 43 years, up until his death. So
Yeah, and and yet they lived in, they lived the subway ride, well, it's funny how, at the height of his career, aside from whatever, Mantle was famous for investing badly and getting bad advice.
Mm-hmm.
But at the height of his career, Mickey Mantle made $100,000. Right? That's so maybe if today that would be considered $1 million, even so,
Yeah.
Right.
Still peanuts compared to what athletes today get. So I mean, that's
true.
Yeah.
What was I talking before Mantle? I should have written this down because I like that idea. What was I talking about?
I have to watch it again.
Before Mantle, it was I really liked the idea. I should have written it down. It was
We're talking about the layering of New York and the influences of all how we all kind of become a melting pot and everything gets mixed up.
Something
like how we cross pollinate our cultures.
Well, that's the beauty of it. That's but yes, the appeal of it, and yet the
and it's why everyone hates each other at the same time. It's
well, it's funny. I have a friend, and I mean, it's I don't want to, because it's a cute story, but I have a friend. I have a friend who just always, I love Brooklyn. He didn't grow up there, but he grew, as soon as when he graduated college, I love Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's the best. And as a native New Yorker, I would say, as a native Manhattanite, I kind of just a joke say, everybody loves Brooklyn, but the minute they can afford to move to Manhattan. And he recently moved to Manhattan, and he said, "I guess you were right."
Well, what's funny, I lived in 3 different apartments in Manhattan when I was in college, living with different girlfriends. And the thing was, as soon as, for some reason, I could never get a good night's sleep. And I missed the Bronx. So I went back to the Grand Concourse. It's like, so I actually went from the Bronx from a private house to apartments in Manhattan and Park Avenue, and then 3rd Avenue, and then 4th Street. And then I went back to the concourse from Tudor City to the concourse, because the walls were so thin that you could always hear the neighbors upstairs walking around so loud in the apartments.
Is the concourse loud to live right on the concourse?
To live on the concourse, well, I had a courtyard building that I lived in that was at the very end of the concourse, and it was pretty much quiet all the time.
Yeah,
you would hear an ambulance because of Montefiore Hospital once in a while, but it was always in the distance.
All depends what block you're on and what street. Because I'm in the Heights now, but on a quiet street. But it's like 2 blocks from the George Washington Bridge.
Right. Yeah, New York City was just very noisy for me.
Yeah.
I could not sleep. It was too noisy.
I used to think I lived on a quiet block, but a friend of mine would stay over, and he grew up in a Rochdale Village in Jamaica, and he couldn't sleep in my house because he'd hear all this traffic that I didn't.
Very
interesting.
I didn't notice it. You can filter out a lot of if you're long enough, but I went to college in Binghamton. So,
Great school.
so the two way, maybe Paris a little bit. I never lived in Paris, but the two things that I always compare: how is this place like Binghamton, and how is it like Manhattan?
You're right.
Mhm.
Well, and I mean, I've been to Paris a few, a couple of times. I mean, I think Paris is the closest to New York.
Mhm.
In terms
Yeah.
of,
Smaller.
They've got more graffiti. It's like
They got a lot of street art.
yeah, like that's right.
Yeah.
They got a lot of street art, but
And they have subway. I think Paris is the only other city I've seen.
Mhm.
I don't know much
Yeah.
about Chicago. They say Chicago is like New York.
Yeah, Chicago is like a clean New York. It's New
Yeah,
York
it's-
but clean. It's very clean. It's like
Paris,
Chicago's very, very segregated.
very
And you can
segregated.
feel
Yeah.
it. Because I've been through Chicago
Mhm.
Chicago.
once,
Mhm.
and you could almost cut it with a knife.
Mhm. Yeah.
Whereas in New York, everybody, like what you're describing, I lived in Brooklyn, no problem, everybody interacted. But there was something about Chicago that as soon as you get in there,
Mhm.
you start to feel this. Well, what is this? There's a tension
Mhm.
in the air.
That's
It's just
interesting.
I love New York. Chicago.
The last time I was in Chicago, it was the 4th of July, and there was a shooting where there was supposed to be some fireworks, or there's kind of like when New Yorkers get together to see the fireworks. So there was a shooting there, and I was like, well, I guess we're not going there. They're like, what are you talking about? Everyone's moving to this other location where they're going to watch the fireworks. And I'm just like, but someone just died. Someone just got shot. There was like, they shot, like, there was like a random shooter just shooting. You want to still go out? Like a New Yorker was like, I'm staying home. But the Chicagoans are like, let's go to this other location and watch the fireworks.
Yeah, well, somebody just got shot there. What are the odds it would happen again so soon?
Right. I just thought that was bizarre. I was like, can't we just stay home? I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's to me, it's almost like each city has its own, for lack of a better word, its own spirit.
Right. Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
My impression of New York for being an outsider.
Miguel, where'd you grow up?
What's that?
Where did you grow up?
He said.
Well, I grew up all over the place.
All over the place.
So my dad was in the Air Force, but when he met my mom in Spain, so I was born there. But he was no longer in the Air Force. He was an engineer.
Uh-huh.
So I've lived in Ottawa, Toronto. I lived in New York, Kansas.
Oh.
I lived outside of Paris for a while. Now I live in northern France. So I've gotten to see a lot of different cities. I'm not a native New Yorker, but my impression of New York was that it was like a majestic cannibal. There's this majesty to it, but it will eat you alive if you don't know how to handle yourself, right? Because there's always a hustle going on.
For real.
I've been to London. London's kind of like Harry Potterville, right? It's like there's something quirky about London. Paris is very elegant. It's a very elegant city. It has its own issues like New York and stuff, and I could talk about that on its own problems. But yeah, New York, there's something about it that's just very different from all the other cities I've been to. Paris is very close to it, but how can I put it? It's just different. It's just different.
What we were talking about a little before, the fact that New York exists both as a mythological place and a real place is such a kind of interesting tension. I think Paris is a city like that too. Paris exists in the popular imagination in a certain way.
Exactly. I know what you mean in the popular cultural sense.
But then the day-to-day living there. So maybe LA is, Los Angeles certainly. Maybe those are the three. Maybe London. I mean,
yeah.
Even Rome. I don't know, because I don't know if people have I don't know if there's much of a popular concept of what life in Rome is like that would be contradicted or confirmed by actually going there.
Maybe during the Fellini films during that period.
That period, yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, maybe Jerusalem, just because of its history and everything, is another kind of city that what it's like living there as opposed to what we see in media.
Very interesting point.
So,
Like
yeah.
I like to describe Paris as New York on Valium.
I remember there was a period I was traveling and I was staying for a while in the Pacific Northwest, and I remember the Kojak pilot. Before the Kojak pilot came on. It was, I think they didn't know it was going to be a series, so it was based on this murder of some young women who were, not. It wasn't the Boston Strangler case. It was some horrible New York murder of young women trying to make it in the city. But I got so nostalgic, either it was in black and white or I was watching on a black and white TV, whatever it was. I got so nostalgic for home. It's like, oh, and and the show was all about like murders and people being beaten up and robbed and knifed, and it was Kojak.
You're homesick. So I think Kojak's a great show.
Who loves you, baby?
One with Harvey Keitel in it. I thought that was pretty. I love to watch a lot of these old shows now, and you get to see all these old actors in there.
The old Twilight Zones and another great New York show is The Naked City. That was really filmed on location.
Yeah,
in the early '60s New York with a lot of people. I mean, Robert Duvall, who just died, was another guy who got his start like in bit parts.
Yeah.
In these shows. So, gentlemen, I should get going.
Yeah, we're wrapping up because this is we've been on for 2 hours and 46 minutes.
Okay. Send me a link so I can,
Absolutely, yes.
And the other, if you're not in it's online for Will Eisner Week. There's a lot of events going on, and I'm doing something online through Ben Catchor's New York Comic and Picture Story Symposium. It's called The Comics and the Fascists. I don't know why that would be relevant now, but
is Chuck Dixon showing up?
Not that I know of, but it's got
well, you said the Comics of the Fascists.
Ari Kaplan and Karen Green, and I'll be moderating. And
that's on March 3rd, right?
On March 3rd, and then that'll be archived also in Ben's. And I'll put a link to it on Facebook. But if you guys want to put a link before or after,
yeah, absolutely,
that would be great. Thank you for having me on and letting me blather on.
Likewise, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
All right, take care.
This is our third incarnation.
Pleasure meeting you.
Okay,
get the Jack Ruby book, The Many Faces of Oswald's Assassin. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Take care. And we're gonna sign off with our usual thing. We got about 13 minutes. Oh, any closing remarks? That was a pretty cool interview.
Wow. Yeah, a lot to learn. A lot that I learned. It was nice to sit back and hear someone speak on a topic that he spent a lot of time researching, which is interesting. Because
10 years is a long time.
10 years is a long time, but it's good. I mean, it's important because I think Jack Ruby is the one guy that he's just sort of like the throwaway character, right? Like,
people
nobody. But it's interesting hearing his personality.
Yeah,
and it adds another dimension to what happened. It doesn't make sense that he did what he did, but he was a guy that was very volatile.
Yeah. And it seems like people, kind of just like to confuse it, saying like to confuse him with JFK's killer because he killed the killer of JFK. It's like, you never think about that, but I could see that over time, people forgetting, and then
I guess you could say, I don't know if that's a proper
like
use of the word, but like transference. You just took it and you just transferred the blame onto him, and we humans love resolution, but a lot of times things aren't resolved neatly and perfectly like they are in comics.
No. And I think it's great that Danny has gone from being an editor at Spider-Man for almost 2 decades, and plus doing a lot of other comics, like writing Sleepwalker, and he edited Dazzler, but even wrote some Dazzlers. I mean, he has a very long history as a writer and editor in Marvel Comics, and then to come up with this Jack Kirby, no Jack Kirby, this Jack Ruby book. I think it's
Right.
pretty wild. I think it's a natural progression, because I think comic books and politics do go together. Even though a lot of people tell me like, "Oh, stick to your comics, don't get into politics," but I mean, the history of cartoons, and has always been political.
Well, you know, you take something as simple as I mean, it seems simple, but the Red Skull was always a sign of,
Right,
you know, our Hydra.
right,
You could actually tie that to neo-Nazism and all the other stuff, right?
yeah,
That's out there. I mean,
mhm,
nothing is completely blank of politics. That's insane.
right,
And I think the problem is that what we're living through right now is both the taking out of politics from entertainment, but the infusion of politics at the same time. It's this
right.
weird thing
It's a
that
weird
doesn't
thing.
really kind of hit
Right,
us in a certain spot, you
right.
know,
It's
or
just
even
like
time, you
someone
know.
told me something about Pedro Pascal should, not Pedro Pascal, sorry, the guy who played the Hulk. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
So if someone's like, "Oh, Mark Ruffalo shouldn't have any opinion about ICE, or he should have an opinion about Palestine," and it's like, well, he's a
What?
human being. Why wouldn't he? Or he should just act. It's like, but people said the same thing about Ali. Oh, he's a boxer. Why is he getting into politics? But
Well,
that,
it's interesting because in the Anglo-Saxon culture, it tends to be that way.
Mhm.
We have all these little boxes. But when
Right?
you look at the Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and so on, the artists are being political. Like
Yeah.
there's no two ways about it. When
Right.
Picasso paints that painting of Guernica,
Hmm.
he isn't doing it because, hey, I thought it was a pretty good painting.
Right. It's
He
not
wants to
pretty picture.
condemn the Nazis for the shit that they did. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And then you have the polar opposite. Dali was a fascist, and
Yeah.
he talked about all sorts of horrible shit that he liked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not going to get that out of a person because that's part of our view of this world.
Right.
And I think we're so used to you just do one thing and you stick to it. Don't move away from that. But it's also hurting us
Hmm.
because we should be able to, as human beings.
Hmm.
I remember taking my high school teacher who passed away about a year and a bit ago. He used to say that Shakespeare viewed a character to have like 40 sides.
Hmm.
So we as human beings just don't have the one side.
Right. We're
I'm
like
not just
many facets.
many facets. Myself,
Hmm.
I'm a dad. You're a dad. You're a
Hmm.
husband. So am I.
Hmm.
We're cartoonists and creators and writers, but we're also interested in the world that our children are growing up in.
Absolutely.
And anyone thinks that this is new, they should look up Bogart.
Right.
Bogart didn't put up with a lot of half that shit. I mean, Casablanca was an
Mhm.
anti-fascist movie,
Hmm.
you know, and about him having to suck it up even though he didn't want to
Hmm.
and sacrifice him feeling good because he wanted this one woman that was married to another guy, but he knew the bigger thing
Right.
was the resistance.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, you just pointed something out. We're fathers. I see a lot of these comic book people that make these comments. A lot of them never had children.
yeah,
So in some ways, they're still boys, even though they're men.
yeah, yeah. Well,
They never experience having to worry about someone outside of themselves, even if they're married, but
right, right.
but they don't have children. They may have nieces and nephews and things like that, but that's different. They don't have that this creation of mind and that fear of failure, fear of success, fear of everything. Are they going to do good? Are they going to do bad? It's like,
You know,
what's going to happen?
is he going to turn out to be a gangster? You know,
Right, is the fear of the unknown.
well, I'll give you an example. It's interesting because I still remember when my firstborn, my son, was born, like before he was born, actually.
Mhm.
I had just read Lone Wolf and Cub.
Mm-hmm. Great book.
And Lone Wolf and Cub was the first story I read in which the main character is not an injured child.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Batman. He's not Spider-Man.
Mhm.
They're not kids who've been injured by they're losing their parents or whatever. He's a guy who has to raise his kid after he's been basically set up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this one where his son gets sick. The main character's name is Ogami Ito. His son gets sick, and his son's asking him for oranges. And it's the middle of winter, and there's a town that he goes to searching for these oranges to get for his son. He goes through all sorts of stuff, and he makes it back to him. And it was interesting because now that I've become a dad, I think of that story, and I think that was the one story that I think helped me transition into fatherhood.
Mm.
Because it's no longer about me.
Right.
It's about my kids. I can enjoy all the stuff that I used to. And it's funny because now when I watch a lot of the old movies, like I sat down yesterday, my kids and I, and Susie, my co-writer, who was my wife, we sat down and watched Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And years ago when I watched Wall Street,
Good movie.
I would always view it from Charlie Sheen's character side.
Mm-hmm.
And this time I'm viewing it and I'm thinking, stupid kid.
Right.
Viewing it from the father's side.
Your father's like, because you're older and wiser.
Because I'm a parent now, and that's my role. And we don't have, and we really desperately need, I think, more characters that are parental figures in comics.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it has to be everything, because there's a habit that all of a sudden something catches on, but everything has to be that, and that's another problem. We need to diversify. We need to have nonfiction. So, you know, Danny could have a Jack Ruby style nonfiction graphic novel. And, you know, that's always been my thing about diversifying. But I think the injured child thing, the orphan, it works to a certain age. I love Batman. I criticize Batman as shit, though, right? Concept.
It's a fascist.
Yeah, I mean, he is.
Poor and the mentally ill.
Exactly. He's not Don Diego, right? He's not Don Diego. But I think that's where, and we had an opportunity. It came a very close opportunity with Peter Parker, him being a parental figure, but I don't think that was handled well.
No,
in my view. So I think we need that as, you know, just because you're a dad. Actually, as a dad, now you have to be more heroic.
Yes.
And you should be like, it's just not my kid, it's everybody else's kid. And these past few weeks, I mean, I haven't been able to joke too much because of the shit that I've been reading in the Epstein files.
Right, you just have to pull away.
Because, you know, my kids are around that age.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter is like the age of a lot of these girls that got abused.
Yeah.
And I know it shouldn't matter if I mean, we shouldn't have to get to the point where it's like, oh, that could be my kid. It should just be, it's a human being and whatnot.
Right.
But there's a certain amount of rage reading this shit.
Absolutely.
That hits you as a parent.
You
know, and I know you're a parent too, so you know, you understand where I'm coming from. But I think we can enjoy our childhood stuff and the nostalgia, but we also have to be in the present,
right?
And guard it for the kids.
Right. We got to take care of the next generation.
Yeah, we have to.
We're not going to make the world better by just sticking our nose in a comic book. And I think that's the importance of this show and the importance of having Danny on and saying, you're fucking old. Let's move on. Let's put away the Spider-Mans and the Batmans and not that we can't enjoy them, but let's get into the next thing. Let's observe history. Let's go into books like, you know, like Danny's book or like these. I mean, I was reading this when I was 19 years old and still reading X-Men. You know,
I mean, it doesn't
back and forth like the Bible, like, you know, just like
one doesn't
like the cover is
the other.
That's all it is.
You know, my late brother used to say to me all the time, he said, the problem with our culture is that we're either or.
Yeah.
We're not an and culture. In other words, like, yeah, I can do this and I can do that. It's like one or the other. You got to do one or the other. It's like, that's stupid.
No, we're multifaceted.
Yeah. Sometimes from reading all that stuff,
Hmm.
all the horrible stuff, yes, I do need a break, and I do need to read something that just completely washes my brain and makes me feel like, okay,
Yeah.
things feel safe. And then I'll jump back into the other shit.
Right. Exactly.
We can do both.
You can do both. You know,
You know?
I hope I didn't offend anybody because we had a watcher that just signed up after I said that. But,
Yeah.
but you know, it's like, but that's what the show is for, right? This show is for so that we can get people like us with similar like minds,
Mhm.
and those who aren't like minded as well, like have different perspective. You know, if they're
Yeah.
on the opposite side of the aisle or what have you, say, hey, it's okay to get into politics or to even understand why
Well-
do you like that. For someone who likes Trump, why? Like,
Well, you know-
really think, get them to think, why do you like this person? You know?
Well, this is one of the things I had hoped the new Dune movies that came out would get people into reading Dune. Because
Mhm.
Dune is not about science fiction.
No,
Dune is an essay on power. And
absolutely.
that's a perfect example of politics because it goes into politics of the Messiah figure and all the bullshit that comes with it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately for Frank Herbert,
Mhm.
Lucas stole a lot of it for Star Wars.
And they're still stealing. I mean, that Book of Boba Fett was basically freaking Dune. It's like,
Yeah. But Blade Runner is political.
yeah, it is completely.
No,
Yeah.
people don't know this, but the word robot in Czech means slave,
Right.
right? So when you watch these things about the revolt of the rebellion of robots,
Right.
it's really talking about slave revolts,
Right.
if you think of it in a metaphorical way.
I mean, if you think about Blade Runner, he's really an ICE agent going after immigrants in a certain way, right? The dehumanization of the other, right?
Yep. The workers, because they're the ones going out doing the working.
Right.
They had a limited lifespan.
Right.
They just want to be able to live life like a human being.
Right. And they're not. They're
Just
being
want to
hunted.
extend their life in order to live some of the life that had been taken from them.
Right.
So, I mean, but I think we get too intoxicated with the idea of the technology
Right.
instead of the societal message that it has. That's
Right.
really what science fiction is about. It's a societal message,
Right. Right.
you know.
Well, I learned that Lee Harvey Oswald lived in the Bronx. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
From 1952 to 54. I'm like, what?
And Hank Williams
Right.
thank his career to Jack Ruby, which is
Right. We got an education today. We learned something new.
we learned something new. That's always good.
We're at 3 hours and 2 minutes. I think we should wrap it up, and we'll save our rest of our energy, our 50-year-old plus energy for next Sunday.
Well, we got to pull a Castro. 35 hours on live stream.
Right.
Just kidding.
So join us next week for episode 23, and we're going to have some interesting people with us next week as well. So we don't know who yet, but I'll promise you it'll be interesting. Signing off. Whoops.
Apocalypse is coming. Are you scared? Are you prepared? The masses are running, frantically running from their fears, running with their tears, running from their lives, running from that dark shadowed creature that hides deep in